for joining us on Healthy Living. Stay connected to Voice of America at voanews.com. A look at your kidneys and how they impact your health. And an expert discusses chronic kidney disease and how to protect yourself. And Ivorian psychologist Noor Bakayoko shares some insights on bullying and what can be done.
It's important to avoid major events or major health crises.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
The young generation awakens on Y254, the leading youth TV station in Kenya. We treat you to current affairs, entrepreneurship, health, and human interest conversations.
It's art, it's culture.
Movies, gossip and trends, sports, drama.
We bring you a vibe like no other, straight to your living room.
To keep you informed, inspired, entertained, and most of all, refreshed.
We are such a vibe.
Y254. Imagine.
Great. Good morning. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya on this beautiful 5th day of November 2024. My name is Victor Olo. How are you doing? It rained in the city. Yeah, somewhat drizzled in some parts of the country. But it was pretty hot yesterday. It was pretty hot. Perhaps that's paving way for the better days to come. And of course, we are all hopeful that things are going to be very positive, even as we come to slowly but surely coming to the close of the year. When we talk about democracy, democracy entails very many things. And one of the world's strongest, as they call it, right, democracies in the world, America is going to the polls. And I want to be a bit cautious in this. I'll give a quote later on by Thomas Jefferson when he talked about democracy. But right about now, people call her Mluya. I don't know how, and I don't know why. Is it because of Hamala?
That name sounds Luya for sure. Hamala.
Bokusu, mostly Bokusu. I have a feeling. Vivian and the Trump. What do you think? I don't know why Regina is so excited. Can we have a split, director? Regina is so excited about these Kamala and Trump elections today. Are you okay? I almost said something.
I don't know, but I don't know what Regina feels about this, but I feel like every woman right now would really want to see a Kamala Harris win. I don't know her.
Yes, Kamala.
I feel like most women really want to see Kamala win these elections. I don't know. Regina, what do you feel?
Well, you just picked it up from my mouth, you know, and I'm thinking, we continue saying who runs the world? Girls. Yes, Beyonce Knowles. Yes, you know Beyonce, Victor.
What did you say?
Who runs the world?
As one.
Girls. So it would be remiss, you know, for us to miss this opportunity as women. And also for what she stands for. She's a woman of color, and through the campaigns we have seen her, you know, her opponent, that is the former president, Donald Trump, just trying to take away that from her, you know, saying that she's not even a black American. There's been quite even the conversation about her roots and what she stands for. And the last few weeks, we have been seeing each of those candidates traverse to swing vote states, one of them being Georgia and Pennsylvania. And they've had quite the neck-to-neck. I'm using the word neck-to-neck because in one of our dailies, Victor and Vivian, this is what we have on our front page, you know? The historic polls, and I would want to read the kicker here. What is at stake? Democracy, a presidential election unlike any other in the United States history, entered its last full day yesterday with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris and their campaigns scrambling to get supporters to the polls in a contest that portrays it as an extension moment for America. If Trump, who is 78, wins this, he would be the oldest person in the U.S. history to be elected president, while Harris, at 60, has a chance to become the first woman to hold the world's most powerful job.
So if either of them wins, history will be made in America.
However it goes today, history is already in the making. And also matters of security have come up during this particular campaign, looking at you know, the role that the United States is playing across the globe when it comes to matters of security. Though during the campaign we saw them steer away from what is happening along the Gaza Strip, but then those who have been on that campaign trail have also been talking about the gun laws in the United States as, you know, number of murder cases increase on that particular front. So yes, the whole world, including us here, are going to be keenly focusing on which way guys, men, women, all eligible persons are going to be voting, which direction. Remember, the electoral colleges come into play, Victor. It's not us. It's a very different system than what we have here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
It's a different form of... I mean, whenever, much as we always talk about U.S. election, our constitution was majorly borrowed from the U.S. and the way they handle the elections. But, you know, there's a different system. Here, it's the presidential system. And the last vote that is counted at the polling station is final. But Americans, their system is completely different. And even the way they coin their campaign message is also something that a majority of people, even here in Kenya, admire. Look at it this way. You can imagine filling, this is just an example, filling a stadium where everybody is seated, you go there and have your campaigns, then you go back home. What about us? What about us? That's the other thing. And even the messaging, there is this issue of, and I really want to get your point here, ladies. On the issue of abortion, Harris says that her presidency would give women more liberty to do whatever they want with their bodies, while Trump says that he will protect women at all costs and by force, whether they want it or not. Okay.
Wow.
Whether they want it or not. So you can imagine the kind of freedom that first world possess. And they pick those contentious point of messaging in their campaigns. So how you're going to coin it, because when you talk about abortion, it's always contentious, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So yes, on a scale of 1 to 10, Vivian, who do you root for?
Of course, I'm rooting for Kamala Harris. And if you've been following some of the national polls from the U.S., I think she's been winning. She's been taking the lead since July, when she was endorsed by current president. She's been taking the lead all through. So I believe that she's still
much
going
as
to...
Paul said that there's a deadlock, you know, that tonight they are doing very well. But anyway, it's okay. So we'll come back home and let's talk about what is happening. The president yesterday said that the judiciary should stick to their job and let politicians do their work. That is part of the conversation I'll be having this morning. Also, we're also going to be touching about that issue of the U.S. elections. I'll be having George Keithy, who is an advocate of the High Court, and Daniel Orogo, political and governance expert, will be joining me at 7 a.m. Regina, you can take it away now for the bulletin.
Now, as the world keeps waiting, you know, with bated breath, which direction that the U.S. is going to take in the neck-to-neck polls, the question is whether a Harris win or a Trump win, what does it bode for Africa, and more so, What does it bode for Kenya? This is a conversation that is going to be put up aptly by my colleague there, Victor, as he mentioned his panel. So be part of the conversation. Get us on X at KBC Channel 1. My X handle is at Ray Manyara. And now we start off with those stories that have been making headlines in the last 12 hours, and we look at the national examinations. Now, on a sad note, a candidate from Kamaro Secondary School in Meru County tragically lost her life just hours before the start of the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examination. Now, this comes as two other candidates who were recently delivered wrote their examinations from their hospital beds. Here are the details of the start of the written examination across the country.
Monday was a challenging day for some candidates as the KCSE examinations commenced. In Meru County, the atmosphere was particularly somber following the untimely death of a candidate from Kamaro Secondary School.
But majority of you...
Officials have confirmed that this loss has cast a shadow among her peers as the written exam started for the 29,148 candidates in the county.
Tunasikitika kwamba hadi kufikia saa 6 za usiku leo tumempoteza mwanafunzi mmoja ambaye anatoka katika maeneo ya Tigania West.
This as two candidates who recently became mothers sat for the examination in the maternity room, a testament to their commitment to education.
Tulikuwa na mabenati wawili ambao walikuwa wamebarikiwa wakajifungua katika hospitali yetu ya Meru. Najua taarifa hizi zitazidi kubadilika kwa sababu labda wameongezeka, na sisi tutaendelea kuwajulisha kadri tunavyopata taarifa.
Meru County Commissioner Jacob Ouma announced that stringent security measures are in place to uphold the integrity of the examinations, urging all candidates to adhere to the rules and warning against cheating.
Wanafunzi waachwe wafanye mitihani yao kwa sababu wamejiandaa miaka yote hii. Asije mtu akaingia pale na ujuzi wake akaja akaharibu mchuzi. Wapishi wengi siku zote mchuzi huharibika, tuwape nafasi wafanye mitihani.
Meanwhile, in Malindi, female candidates outnumbered the males for the first time, a notable shift highlighted by local education officials.
So the total centers are 50, and the number of candidates are actually categorized categorically under boys and girls. We have the number of boys 2,283, and the number of girls we have 2,409. The total number of KCSE candidates in Malindi sub-county are 4,692.
And in Kisii County, the Deputy County Commissioner Ngunyi Maina cautioned against stigmatizing the region as a hotbed for exam malpractice, citing the perception that the region was known for exam cheating was unfounded.
Tunaambia walimu ambao ndio wasimamizi wa mitihani waondoe hilo tatizo ambalo liko ya kwamba sisi watu wa Kisii ni wezi wa mtihani, na sio hivyo.
Separately, candidates in Migori and Busia sat for their papers amid heightened security.
Mtihani wa mwaka huu una tofauti kubwa kwa sababu mpaka karatasi imeandikwa jina la mwanafunzi. Kwa hivyo tunatarajia kwamba tutakuwa na visa vichache sana kwa sababu mwanafunzi anapewa tu karatasi ambayo imeandikwa jina lake, si kama pale mbeleni ambapo wanafunzi walikuwa wanaandika jina lao katika karatasi.
Busia it has a history ya kufanya mtihani. We have never had very serious cases of cheating or irregularities. The few cases that were there in the previous ago, they were handled properly. We hope this time we will not have such cases.
And in the northeastern region, 6 helicopters were on standby in case of the need to airlift exam papers.
We have also set up DK vehicles which are strong to run the exams to the centers. We also have 6 choppers, 2 in Mandera, 2 in Ujia, and 2 in Dar es Salaam.
Lastly, in Lodwar, the distribution of examination materials began with optimism. Turkana Education Director Henry Lubanga announced that 17,949 candidates will participate across 112 public and private centers in the county.
Now, we want to wish all the candidates who began their written exams yesterday all the very best, especially Judith and Gabriel of Mary Hill Secondary School, as well as Ololiza in Kajiado. Now, Kenya and China are collaborating to implement development projects that will ensure strategic partnerships in the development of the road and rail projects. Speaking during the meeting with Li Zi, a member of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China Central Committee, President William Ruto said Kenya is keen to reap the benefits of the projects to enhance transformative development and alleviate poverty.
Speaking during a meeting with Li Shi, a member of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China Central Committee and Secretary of the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection at State House, Nairobi, President William Ruto said discussions are at an advanced stage with China over the Rironi-Mau Summit Road, where talks are ongoing over the extension of SGR 2B from Naivasha to Kisumu and SGR 2C from Kisumu to Malaba.
I'm here in Kenya with the CPC delegation to implement the important common understandings between you and President Xi Jinping, as well as the outcomes of the FOCAC Beijing Summit, so as to promote the in-depth and continuous development of our comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership.
The president also welcomed the Chinese private sector to invest in renewable energy, e-mobility, manufacturing, health, and agriculture. He also urged China to facilitate cooperation between Kenya and business community. Additionally, he called for China's support in Kenya's bid to join BRICS and for the election of Kenya's candidate to the position of the African Union Commission chairperson.
It was an honor, Your Excellency, for me to join President Xi and fellow African heads of state and government under the Beijing Action Plan 2025 in setting a common strategic plan for the partnership between our continent and China. And Kenya, I want to assure you, is committed to promoting this partnership across Africa and also upholding the One China policy.
Committed to working diligently to advance our bilateral cooperation.
Separately, the president also received the credentials of South Sudan's newly appointed ambassador, Monica Achol Agwekayol, at State House, Nairobi on November 4th, 2024.
Now, Victor mentioned that it was a bit wet yesterday after quite the heat. Yes, indeed, the Kenya Meteorological Department has issued has allayed fears over the onset of the start of the short rains this season in some parts of the country. Now, speaking at the department's headquarters, Kenya Meteorological Department Director Dr. David Gikongo said the delayed rains should be no cause for alarm, noting that the western parts of the country had sufficient rains in June to August season that have extended into the short rainy season. Now, he added that the areas already receiving rainfall are set to produce sufficient food stocks for the rest of the country.
The weatherman has allayed any fears of depressed rains, saying that beginning Wednesday, the areas that have been dry will begin to receive rainfall. Kenya Meteorological Department Director Dr. David Gikungu said that the delayed rains is not an indication of starvation, noting that the western part of Kenya experienced the June, July and August rains, which means that enough food was produced in the said duration.
The western parts of the country didn't quite have a break from the June, July, August going into September that has had good rainfall that feeds the nation. Wherever you go in Kenya, you will find ugali, isn't it? Yes, and that is all we would ask for. We are not saying that the rains will fail. The onset gets late.
He, however, noted that the eastern regions of Kenya have been drier, although the situation is expected to change in the coming week.
But over the eastern, let's do a different activity, but let's not be alarmist. We will continue informing you as we watch. let's move together, let's alert the public together in terms of how to prepare for the weather in these different times.
The officials further noted that farmers in the agricultural sector will still be able to farm their crops with the little rain that is expected. However, the growing season may be shorter.
However, for agriculture, what is more important is distribution. If you get the growing season correct, you can get little rainfall and then get something. But then when it's late, we also assume maybe the growing season will be short.
The weatherman said this during the launch of Training of Trainers workshop on Puma and Cleanser systems recently installed at the Kenya Meteorological Department by the Africa Union Commission, supported by the European Union. This installation is vital for providing tailored weather updates and warnings, ultimately supporting various sectors, including agriculture, disaster management, and public safety.
With the installation of the upgraded satellites, the general public now expects to receive information on tailored weather updates.
Well, now you know that there's no need for panic or worry in regard to that matter. Now, to the courts, the Director of Public Prosecution is once again at loggerheads with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, after DPP Ranson Mulele requested to withdraw a graft case involving multiple forgeries of academic certificates by a senior government official. In an affidavit filed before the Milimani Anti-Corruption Court, EACC has vehemently opposed a move by the DPP to terminate the case against Gabriel Bukachi Chapia, saying already 14 out of the 15 listed businesses have already testified. Details of this in our Skills of Justice segment.
In the case before Milimani's Anti-Corruption Chief Magistrate EACC has informed the court that it beats logic for DPP to withdraw the case at this stage, with only one witness remaining, who is the investigating officer. The accused person, Gabriel Bukachi Chapia, is charged with forging both his bachelor's and master's degree certificates, using the same to secure employment at senior level in 3 public institutions. In his application to withdraw the case, the DPP has cited a request from the accused person to review the decision to charge him. However, EACC urges the court to dismiss the DPP's move, terming it arbitrary, capricious, and a complete disregard of public interest. EACC further argues that using the forged academic certificates, the accused person fraudulently secured employment in the public service and earned salaries amounting to 9.7 million shillings, which they weren't recovered in full. The matter was adjourned to Thursday, 7th November. Elsewhere, Milimani's Children Court has launched Children's Service Week, which is aimed at creating awareness of children different ways of correcting them.
This year, our theme is enhancing child justice through preliminary inquiry and diversion, promoting rehabilitation, reintegration, dignity for children in conflict with the law. We still have several activities lined up during this month. Next week, we have set next week specifically to do civil matters concerning children, trying to expedite. The week after, we have set it aside for criminal matters, specifically to expedite criminal matters. The week after that, we intend to do community outreach. And we have a program at Kayole in Eastlands, where we are going to meet members of the public, the community, and engage them.
The exercise runs until end of November.
Courts, we delve into business, and according to the central bank, is that Premier Bank offers the cheapest credit at a flat rate of 9% for all categories of loans, according to the latest data from Central Bank of Kenya. Now, the data further indicates that Cooperative Bank of Kenya is a go-to bank if you're looking for a cheap overdraft among other largest banks in Kenya, pricing its loan at nearly half than compared to the most expensive peer.
The Central Bank of Kenya has been compiling the lending rates for commercial banks since July this year. The commercial banks' weighted average lending rates, latest data for September 2024, indicates that Cooperative Bank of Kenya is the go-to bank if you're looking for the cheapest overdraft. This is the second month in a row that Cooperative Bank of Kenya has beat peers in offering the lowest overdrafts. If you're looking for an overdraft repayable in less than a year, Cooperative Bank of Kenya will charge you 11.05%, while NCBA Bank charges 20.66%. Overall, the CBK data shows that Cooperative Bank of Kenya charged a mean interest rate of 14.88% as compared to Absa Bank's 20.02%. On average, the data indicates that Cooperative Bank of Kenya ranks 7th overall in pricing of loans. Premier Bank offers the cheapest credit at a flat rate of 9% for all loans, followed by Access Bank at 11.42% and Diamond Trust Bank at 12.44%. The central bank says 6 banks have priced their loans above 20%. The most expensive commercial banks to borrow a loan are Middle East Bank, which charges 21.52%, HFC at 20.05%, Credit Bank at 20.25%, and Absa Bank Kenya at 20.02%.
Now, still on business, the business community is calling for a predictable tax regime, noting that abrupt changes in tax rates is adversely affecting their budgeting process and their ability to service orders, especially imported raw materials. The Kenya Association of Manufacturers cites unpredictable changes in the tax regime in Kenya as among factors affecting businesses. Trevor Ngendo with the details.
There have been concerns from businesses about the changes in policy, especially tax rates that are done abruptly. Businesses have been calling for enactment of tax regimes that last at least 3 years before they are reviewed to enable them plan accordingly. They argue that changes in the tax rates affect the cost of doing businesses, especially for imported raw materials. This was a key highlight for businesses during a public participation forum on the proposed Business Laws Amendment Bill 2024.
Separate it from the finance bill so that we actually know we have a block of 3 years or we have a block of 5 years within things remain constant and you're able to plan to grow.
Businesses are also concerned about issues of double taxation, noting that in some instances, raw materials and the finished products are taxed.
We've had a lot of different ministries, different agencies bringing taxes, bringing levies, and therefore the government looked uncoordinated from our view. And this led to a lot of unpredictability in the business environment.
Of double taxation on packaging materials, which also affect flowers. And part of the amendment is to ensure that we streamline that so that we can only have one area of taxation.
If passed in its current form, Business Laws Amendment Bill 2024 ring-fenced at least 40% of public procurement to be sourced locally in a bid to create demand for goods from local manufacturers and service providers.
Have introduced import levy for specific products, which are going to be levied because we want to promote local manufacturing.
Now we cross over to sports, where KCB FC continued to hold onto the leadership of the Football Kenya Federation Premier League standings despite losing their first match this season when they went down 1-0 to Mathare United. Now the Bankers lead the standings with 17 points, 3 ahead of their closest challengers, Mara Sugar.
KCB lost their first match of the 2024-2025 after falling to Mathare United by a goal to 0. It was Mathare's third win of the campaign that catapulted them to 4th place with 11 points, while KCB remains top of the standings with 17 points. Mara Sugar are enjoying a dream start to their debut top flight season, sitting second 4 points adrift. Kariobangi Sharks is placed third. Former champions FC Leopards and Tusker are placed 5th and 6th respectively on 10 and 9 points. Defending champions Gor Mahia, who battled to a 2-2 draw with Moranga Seal, complete the top 10 with 8 points. Shabana are bottom of the grid, having collected a meager 3 points from 6 matches. Kakamega Homeboys and Posta Rangers occupy 17th and 16th positions respectively.
Well, that puts a couple of matters in the headlines this morning. Just to remind you that if you are a rugby lover, well, the RFUA grounds on Saturday is the place to be, as the Elgon Cup starts its first leg. The second leg is going to be on the 16th of November in Kampala, Uganda. So now come Saturday, we're going to have the Simbas taking on their training, or rather intensifying their training ahead of that particular game. So now you know, those are the plans that you have for the weekend rugby at the RFA grounds. We'll continue keeping tabs on what is happening across the country, including the KCSE examinations that enter day 2 today, as well as matters of politics, where the president has already pronounced himself and told the judiciary should stay in its lane, and all eyes now are trained globally on the U.S. and the direction it takes. Whether Kamala or Donald Trump, what does it augur for Africa and in particular Kenya if either wins? We'll be keeping tabs. That puts a cap. I hand you over to Victor for our next conversation, so do keep it right here. I'm Regina Manyara. Blessed day ahead.
Thank you for joining us on Healthy Living. Stay connected to Voice of America at voanews.com. A look at your kidneys and how they impact your health. And an expert discusses chronic kidney disease and how to protect yourself. And Ivorian psychologist Noor Bakayoko shares some insights on bullying and what can be done.
It's important to avoid major events or major health crises.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
Hello, kids. Hey, guys. Hey, everybody. Are you ready for fun? Huh? We have an amazing package just for you. Akili. Ubongo. Ubongo kids. Ubongo kids. Big minds. Travelers. I can travel to wherever I want. Robocars and Engine.
No more pollution, you know what I mean.
Oh, those little geniuses. The Children's Corner. Saturday mornings this holiday season only on KBC. That's right!
Nini? Kwani nini? Kama wewe hujui nini mimi nitajuaje? Ni wewe umekuja nacho, niambie ni kitu gani? Nini?
Nikipoteza chochote chumbani mwangu, nisiulize wale ambao naishi na wao.
Oh, kati ya wale unaishi nao, uko na siri ndio wa kwanza. Hivyo viatu na nguo tunavaa na wewe.
Sikiza nikupe ushauri mdogo. Baada ya kuvuta bangi, hakikisha umekunywa maziwa. Sawa? Toka! Kuna nini hapa?
Fala, we are tired of this one major problems after another. If you don't have solution, don't raise problems, okay?
A solution to what, warrior?
What are the solution without a problem? I don't know. What are they? No problem, of course.
Carmen, he has just said that he comes from Nairobi, Kenya. And then how is he a Jamaican again?
Okay, maybe he's an Jamaican who is visiting Kenya.
Ninakwambia leo tunaenda kutengeneza pesa
na tugawane hiyo pesa pia. Tunakuaga na tabia ya kunitoka pesa kila wakati wewe.
Lasta. Uchaijua hizi haso zetu zinakuaga na expenses.
Are you now saying that we are girls? Including you? Of course. Girl power all the way.
Omera, opportunity comes one nyathiwa. I, Topilas Atito, will be running for MCA of Sawati 1.
All right. Karibu sana. It's now 6 minutes past 7 a.m. on this beautiful day of Tuesday. I really want to take a look at really what is happening in the country and of course across our borders, and just to make sense of what is happening politically so and even socially speaking, because that is what you do best. My name is Victor Lowe. You can talk to us on social media at Victor Lowe at KBC Channel 1, and we'll be talking to you on our social media platform as well. All right, so let me take you through the front page of a local daily here. Let me start with the Standard. Standard has headline, Justice on Trial. That is what's on the front page, Justice on Trial. That is what is here. In relation to yesterday's president's speech at the Supreme Court of Kenya at 12 years of Supreme Court has been a mixed bag for different people. While some hail the Apex Court as the epitome of jurisprudence, others feel it has not met expectation. President William Ruto too has his word for the judges, whose word is a final on matters litigation. And he said that we always talk about judicial independence, and it is a fundamental principle of our constitution. But what happens when we have judicial overreach and interference? That's what he terms judicial overreach and interference. And he went ahead and pleaded with the courts to be independent in as far as matters political is concerned. And he asked the courts to stick to their lane. That is also on the front page of the Daily Nation. But Daily Nation is somehow different. Historic polls, that is what I have here. I have these two leaders, that is Trump and Kamala Harris, going to the polls, and the US deciding on who is going to lead them for the next 4 years. Historic polls. And now everything is at stake because it's a test of democracy where presidential election, unlike any other in the United States history, entered its last full day yesterday with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris and their campaigns scrambling to get supporters to the polls in a contest each portrays as an existential. What did I say?
That one.
Existential. Existential moment for America. If Trump 78 wins, he would be the oldest person in US history to be elected president, while Harris 60 has a chance to become the first woman to hold the world's most powerful job. So either way, history will be written today or not. Let me start with my guest, Daniel Orogo, on set. Daniel Orogo is the current Africa Regional Coordinator, Democracy Moves, Managing Director, Civic Voices Initiative Kenya, and Political and Governance Consultant. Daniel, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you, my brother.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
All right, and George Kithi is an advocate of the High Court. Wakili, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Karibu sana.
Asante.
I'm doing fantastic. So let me just start. I think it's also good because this is a big brother. US is a big brother to us. I think let's run away from our home issues a bit and make sense of what is happening. I know you gentlemen, you've been following the US story, and let me start with you, Dan. Nobody knew that Kamala would make it to this point until her name cropped up. But now we are here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think it's more of democracy on balance. Just like you've alluded to, all the two candidates, either of them succeeds, they make history.
Yes.
In one way or the other. Like you said, for Donald Trump, is the age, but also is making a comeback. And, you know, it happens on other democracies, probably on the global south. But it's quite interesting that that can happen in the United States as well, where he was the president between 2016 and 2020. And then after that, Joe Biden's, and then he makes a comeback. That would really be interesting if at all Democrats, you know, would ascend to power. But for Kamala Harris, just like you've mentioned, could be the first time we are seeing a woman on the topmost seat in the globe with a global power. Quite interesting, again, that there's been a confusion whether she is, you know, the politics of US, whether she's a black or she's Indian black, or, you know, the father and the mother being from Jamaican Indian as well. So I think that there are historical perspectives on these elections, and you've seen the heightened campaign that has been diverted towards very thorny and emotional issues in the American citizenry, talking about immigration. You know, statements have been made about immigration. When Donald Trump is saying that he is going to deport all illegal immigrants, you know, in the country, he's been riding on that. So saying that, you know, the jobs, the domestic jobs are being taken by migrants in this country. On the other side, you know, Democrats are hell-bent on saying that, you know, they need to, you know, create jobs. The divide between Republicans and Democrats, you know, historically, has been quite interesting. But again, just like you've mentioned, what then is our issue in this election as Kenyan? I think that is quite important to say. That the American foreign policy to Africa, and especially to Kenya, has been quite interesting. That there has been a close bilateral relationship between the US and Kenya. And recently you saw that President William Ruto was accorded a state reception and a state visit. The first probably African you know, heads of state to be given that within a period of time. Kenya has been given a non-NATO member. In, you know, so that means that should we have Democrats ascending into positions of power, that it means that our relationship with America, especially in training, in equipping, you know, with, you know, weapons and with training, capacity and security issues would still be enhanced. But again, what happens if Republicans get into position? You understand Donald Trump's issue with Africa. Ever since he was in power between 2016 to 2022, he never stepped foot in Africa. The wife was here actually, but he himself didn't spend you know, some time. So we are seeing Joe Biden's, even in his last match, he's visiting Angola, you know, just his first tour in Africa. So we could actually see the relationship Democrats are having with their policy in Africa, the difference Republicans are having in their foreign policy towards Africa. So I think there is so much to be done, but it is close. The election is very close, and as we speak, any one of them can emerge. Any one of them can imagine.
It is, Wakili, still history, either way you look at it. Their kind of democracy is quite different, even from the way they handle their policies, the campaign messaging, and how they coin it to appeal to the international community and even to Americans themselves. But America is a collective, it's a country where every word you say counts. And it can be picked in one such way, and your opponent will ride with it. But one important thing here is, when you looked at Obama, Obama was a mixed race. I don't know whether this was deliberate by picking Harris, or because she was the vice president, and now she's also mixed race, Jamaica and Indian. What do you think America is trying to do? Starting with Obama, to now we have Harris.
If Kamala is
exactly,
elected.
Yes.
Let me put it this way. This is a very interesting time in terms of the US, because you see, Obama and Republicans have had a Puritan approach to the societal, content, and they are more aggressive on the Puritan American benefits in terms of citizenry and the packaging of America as a Puritan white community. Ku Klux Klan, all the historical issues, even towards the acceptance of especially women to vote, and the black man and other people of race. So they've had their own turmoil. America became a superpower at the Second World War on account of advanced technology in military. And of course, in this world, it's the economy and the military power that superimposes a country on others. What we have here is a mixed bucket of what US would, in terms of internal issues, especially on economy and job creation, which is very emotional for them. Then, of course, the immigration issue, as my good friend has pointed out, but more importantly, what does immigration has to do in terms of the friction with the white man in US? Because that's really the clarion call for, he says it's adulterating the society, basically, with a lot of patterns of colors here and there. And again, the international relationship with other countries, of course, there's Iran. On the side, there's a war that is being prosecuted in the Middle East. That's a region that right now, the ecosystem is not at equilibrium. The issues of environment, lots of typhoons, many issues are coming and killing people, actually more than even the pandemic probably. Taiwan has been hit, I think, the third time, this time, by an unsettled climatic issue, I think last week. Then there is also the issue of Ukraine-Russia war vis-a-vis the international community involvement. Right now we have the axis of, the Korean North, the North Korea moving into assisting the prosecution of war by Russia, and that invites now South Korea and the whole dynamics of the world. So you need a very strong leader if you look at it that way. What US needs is either a person who then would probably bring the war decibels much lower for purposes of settling the world again. Remember, during Trump's time, there was no war. Either he was lucky or it's the way he behaved, or people feared to start a war because he would get involved. It's actually the Democrats that have always had. Obama tried to stop the war, but in a very chaotic manner when they were pulling out from the Taliban and stuff like that. So you see, America is everything in the world. I would say that. Right from dollarization of economies to the political dollarization, the axis of China now moving closer in ties with Russia, trying to prosecute the BRICS movement, which basically has not even taken off. The African context is we basically, the flag as we go to China, we go. We are called in Russia, we'll go.
That actually forms my next question, the implication of either way winning.
Yes.
The implication to Africa.
And of course, lastly, is that US has tried to put a woman into power. It has failed right from Clinton. She came very close. In fact, the exit polls she was the president for the people. But eventually, American democracy is very, very complicated, like you put it, this way that, you see here we have what we call direct democracy and indirect democracy in our constitution. Direct democracy is that we put our leaders into power by electing them. We exercise that direct democracy. And then when they get into power, now we have representative democracy, because the members of parliament now represent us in parliament. And therefore they prosecute our laws, they make our laws, they tell us what to do, they do our budget, we give them money through taxes and stuff like that. They even tell us how much we're going to borrow and approve and all that. The US, they've moved from direct democracy to the ideal democracy, which is basically a representation of the people by a few, so they can prosecute your issues. And they do it even in election. So for us, you see, we elect them, they represent us. For them, they elect the ones that elect. You get the point? So that's why they're called colleges. So when you have many billions of people or millions of people, they don't vote direct. They vote for those that will vote. Okay? The only thing I can explain to you here is like probably IBC, what we're having now in Kenya. What Parliament will do is put into people the IBC commissioners. All right?
Yes.
So Parliament elects a setup of a council of sorts, or committee of sorts, that then interviews the IBC people, but some set rules have been put into place. That to the US is probably the ideal of what democracy, because democracy is about representation of the people through and through. So you'll hear people have voted, but they have voted for people who then say who the president is in terms of colleges. Now, usually it's very predictable. For instance, if it were here, then in Nyanza, you would know they'll vote for Raila. In Mulima, you know they vote for Gachagua, or so on and so forth, right? So it's very predictable. Now, when we say it close to call, it means that the margins and the issues are very complicated. For instance, you now see a movement of black people in terms of policies to Trump, in terms of half, because the issues that are being prosecuted by Obama have been. The Arab Americans obviously were democratic leaning. Now, because of the war in the Middle East, they have moved, most of them have moved because they have been cause of stopping the war and not arming Israel. And Israel, of course, have always been getting weapons from the US. Now, that has moved them towards Trump. So there's been a movement of all these patterns in terms of who elects who, or this representative go which movement. And therefore, yes, you can't say as we speak, even today, who is going to win. Lastly, and I'll give this example, for instance, a few years ago as Law Society, we used to vote for our president using, you post your ballot, all right? So you receive a ballot, then you say, okay, Victor is the president of Law Society, and then you send it. Of course, then the integrity was, once you receive, they'll be opened and be transparency. And there's a movement between the ballot heights being sent that you received, you say you've received, and then sent to you. That's what they do. So there's early voting, all right, in US. So people have already cast their votes and they're waiting in some states. Others are doing it now. So then even in that early voting, the pattern can be seen also, because you already know who the voters are. There's a voter register, and then there's a delegates register for the voting.
And just to remind our viewers, that one state in America is as big as Kenya.
Even more.
No, the Kenya is not can make a state. Kenya is a small thing.
It's a small.
It's a small place in the US.
It is the United.
You make it look so.
United States. So there's some states probably are the size of Kenya, and others are larger than Kenya, and that is what tells the supremacy of the US, and also what makes it so sovereign and powerful in the League of Nations and international community. And I think I agree with what Wakili was talking about, is then this particular elections also is a time that the US democracy also has to redeem itself from what happened in January 6th of 2020, when there was insurrection in Pentagon and all these things. So I think Americans have had difficult time, especially when they would want to appear to lecture the rest of the world about democracy. Because then people would always make a reference to that particular occurrences. You understand? Especially those who are extremely in variance with the United States. And so I think one of the statements probably that they would want to make is that democracy really needs to be restored. And probably that was the election of Joe Biden. Now you asked about, was it expected for Kamala Harris to, exactly? Because it was a very short time for transition.
Yes.
The first particular debate that Donald Trump had with Joe Biden, you could see the lapses. It was very clear, especially from democratic institutions and those who call shots in the Democratic Party. The Nancy Pelosi's, you understand? Jack Schumer and everyone, the powerful senators that calls the shot in Democratic Party. They had actually seen that if the ticket of Joe Biden would suffice, then it was going to be a total and a complete win for Donald Trump. Completely. From the first debate. I think it was within the public view from that debate. Everyone could see that President Joe Biden was fumbling on the debate. Sometimes memory lapses, sometimes, pausing, a long pause. So it actually looked at his mental stability and physical health. But again, there was no, I don't see what could have happened if the National Democratic Convention could actually call the candidates, that they would vet candidates and bring them to call on the National Democratic Convention. It could have taken time.
Yeah.
It could have taken a lot of controversies within the political party, within the, democratic establishment itself. What would be the implications of that? Giving Donald Trump a free hand.
Yes.
By that time, there were squabbles to settle on a candidate. So I think they would just make sure that they have a candidate, and then they will deal with the baggage of that candidate. But I think they had one in Kamala Harris as well.
You know, America, whenever they have their campaign messaging, it goes beyond America. And it seems that everyone in America understands the democracy pretty fine, that it's quite different from what we have here. Here, you talk of, this region can vote for that region. You can easily predict the way you said, Wakili. But then now, America will pick one contentious issue. Let's take, for example, the Ukraine and Russia war. We've seen the ripple effect for years, and here we are today. I don't know what's your mind in terms of whoever wins. How is this going to change the Russia-Ukraine war and generally now start to change the effect that we've had over time because of these two countries?
Let me put it this way. I think that introduces the folly of democracy. Yes. Democracy is not ideal at all. Democracy prescribes one thing. You are a society. You live after a certain cycle of number of years. You go into elections. And you divide yourself into biases, which are not prescribed. Muslim, Christian, ethnic, color, everything. You vote according to what you want.
Yes.
And it may be most unreasonable thing, but you still vote. I vote for him because he has a bravado, he's a star, he's a rock star, and all that. You can do all that, right? So the problem with democracy is that it is divisive. So you divide yourself, hoping that the elasticity of the nation, as it divides itself, you can still come back. And therefore, for every cycle, divide the society and then bring it back into the fold. In the Bible, probably should have stuck to that. Should have allowed God to pick the leaders. So there's Samuel here, there's I don't know who, from God. But now it's the human beings whose brains are not God's brains. So what they prosecute is personal interest. Now, the interest for us, of course, the first fissure of division in our country, for instance, is ethnicity. And therefore we divide ourselves along ethnicity. The economy may be from the intellectual of the urbanites in Nairobi and Mombasa and Kisumu, and those ones look at probably the economy and they talk more about the economy. But in terms of prosecution of the actual election, we go ethnic because that's the first fissure of division in the country. Very dominant. Campaigning, you'll see Kamala saying, I'm one of you, when he's appealing to the Hispanics and, all that, the color people. And the blacks are prosecuted differently. And the black movement and the riots, quoting from the histories of the movement up to now. And even in conventions, you bring an Arab to talk, you bring an African to talk, and all that. So you see, then the international element. That's why Obama flew at a point to Israel and back when he was accused of being weak on international relations. And what I think is, in matters of international relations, is because then how does U.S. remain to be dominant in the world under the leadership? Because it could weaken, and therefore Russia emerges. You see, there's this Cold War element that continues to be, it became hot a bit, now it gets cold and on and forth, so on and so forth. Because of the president, the personality of the president. When, like you said, the president of U.S. talks, it's not mere rhetoric. It is a communication to the world. It's a communication to the country. It actually invites world policy completely. For instance, UN can pass whatever resolution they want on Israel, whatever they want. It won't be prosecuted.
And it will be effected.
Yes, it will not be effected if U.S. does not want. In fact, U.S. can veto an entire 99.9% U.S. resolution. So you realize that even at that apex of the world where the UN prosecutes certain issues in matters economy, matters war, in matters stability of the world, UN still calls the shots, ultimately as a single voice for what happens in the world. And therefore, it is not just a vote by the US, by the people of the US. It's actually a vote for the world, because you see the interests are, so the Taliban will probably want so and so, The Palestinians would want probably this one. The Israelis, in fact, it is said Netanyahu is waiting for this election to know how to go and prosecute himself.
So it means that it's not even Kenya. The way you can say that when Kenya, our democracy, the way it is right now, if candidate X or Y is voted into office, a certain jurisdiction, either our neighboring countries, somebody is going to benefit because of something here and here and there. But with America, the whole world benefits. But I want to ask a question when we come back after this break. We've had, America has never prioritized Africa so much, apart from the Clinton and the Bush regime. Not even Obama, not so much.
They have.
No, the Clinton and Bush regime.
They do. They take our resources.
That's what I'm saying.
So much.
They have prioritized Africa, and the scramble of African resources that is going on.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break.
We are tired of this one major problems after another. If you don't have solution, don't raise problems, okay?
A solution to what, Warrior? What are the solutions without a problem?
I don't know. What are they?
No problem, of course.
Come in. He has just said that he comes from Nairobi, Kenya. And then how is he a Jamaican again?
Okay, maybe he's an Jamaican who is visiting Kenya.
Ninakwambia leo, leo tunaenda kutengeneza pesa kutengeneza.
Na tugawane hiyo pesa pia. Juu unakuaga na tabia ya kunitoka pesa kila wakati wewe.
Lasta. Utaijua hizi haso zetu zinakuaga na expenses.
Are you now saying that we are girls? Including you? Of course. Girl power all the way.
Omera, opportunity comes one Nyathiwa. Aito Pilas Atito will be running for MCA of Sawati 1.
Nini? Kwani nini? Kama wewe hujui nini mimi nitajuaje? Ni wewe umekuja nacho, niambie ni kitu gani?
Nini? Nikipoteza chochote chumbani mwangu, nisiulize wale ambao naishi na wao.
Kati ya wale unaishi nao, uko na siri ndio wa kwanza. Hivyo viatu na nguo tunavaa na wewe.
Sikiza nikupe ushauri mdogo. Baada ya kuvuta bangi, hakikisha umekunywa maziwa. Sawa? Kuna nini hapa?
Welcome back. So they say that when America catches cold, sneezes, all of us catches cold. So I think it's so important to talk about matters America and what it really means, because America is a big brother. We can't avoid that. America is a big brother, and that is why when during the swearing in last week, gentlemen, you'll agree with me that the ambassador, Meg, was there, frontline. So it's quite important for us. But before I ask a question, and you almost swallowed me, the Bush and the Clintons administration and regime. But the priority that America has over Africa, is it because, what is it? Okay, I want to say something, but what is it about? Dan.
Well, I think we were just faulting you because then you said the kind of relationship that the regimes have had with Africa. You are a little bit biased to the positive end, and that's why we are saying no. It's not only to the positive end. I mean, we can account for some things that have happened within the continent that the United States has been responsible for. You know, in the space of international diplomacy, what you can see, the foreign policy, historically, that look at America had no really interest around colonization, all right? It was purely European powers who, some men sat somewhere on the Berlin Conference and divided Africa, all right? I don't know with whose permission, and say this one go to this country. But you could see that Americans were not there. But then after that, there had been a lot of interest on the scramble of Africa. One, because Africa is becoming endowed with resources, and therefore much of their companies and resources are dependent on the extraction industries that are in Africa, or resources. So I think that is one thing that we are always trying to avoid, to talk about. But I think it's important to say that the northern hemisphere really depends on the African continent, much of it because of the resources that are endowed. And what has become of late, when you're talking about the relationship, we've seen situations where this scramble for resources, especially in the African soil, has been militarized. And I like what Wakili was talking about, looking at the veto power. The US has a veto power at the United Nations Security Council. I was reading an article where we've seen a lot of almost 37 vetoes that the US has passed. Some of it has affected Africa. I'll give you an example. In 2011, when we had an issue in Libya here, in McHugh, that was the regime of Democrats, Hillary Clinton being the Secretary of State. We had a problem here in Libya when the UN Security Council, through the veto powers of United Nations and America, veto so that we have a no-fly zone in Libya. And that led to the disposition of Muhammad Gaddafi, right?
Yes.
That is just one example. So if we have military moving in, especially in the guise of protecting the civilians, and actually going into war, nobody is questioning that. In fact, we could have a lot of time next time to question why is it that sometimes we see this into the lenses of soft gloves and coercive power and international diplomacy, but then we are not questioning why is it that this relationship with them, America is big, and no country, for example, we cannot say that Kenya can have a bilateral agreement with the US. You've just said that one state in the United Nations is bigger than Kenya. So how would Kenya have a relationship? Tell me, what kind of bilateral talks would you have with such a power?
But we can even twist it this way.
Yes.
How Kenya is important to the US?
That's what I'm saying. The importance is that you've talked about trade here, that we are doing our trade. Then trade basically matters of AGOA. I think Wakili was talking about, even if we are having trade, but those are just kind of trade concessions. So we have a bilateral agreement with the trade. I mean, we have a military training center here. Just, was it at Manda Bay? That we are actually offering our coastlines for strategic military position to the US and to Europe. We're having Batuk. That's where here in Nanyuki. A very key strategic position for the UK for training for their military in the whole world. So what I'm just trying to say is that yes, there could be a bilateral security situation, but what is the benefit? Do we reap exact benefit from these bilateral talks? So I think this is a conversation that we should have.
In terms of balance of trade.
Yes.
When Kamala Harris, Wakili, when Kamala Harris, her name was flouted, people were a bit sketchy about it, but she's risen through the polls up to where right now she is. And when you compare Trump and Kamala Harris, Trump has been there in the US, politics for years. But some people would say that the way she coined her message did not so much resonate with the voter. Perhaps you can give it because of the time that she had to turn around and all that. But we have to give it to her. The Democrats and the think tanks have made some tremendous job to bring her up to where now she's able to compete with Trump neck to neck.
Well, I think the advantage she enjoys is the advantage of, a new look. Because it was more of compared to Biden than compared to Trump. Right? Her choice was more a compared
to Biden.
choice to Biden, who was weak.
And to carry the Democrats' flag.
Yes. So the Democrats' chances were fumbled. When she came, and therefore there was re-energized environment and the stature of the presidency candidature changed for Democrats. If it was a different person like Michelle, I'm sure it should be higher. Maybe Trump would have been at 20% by now. because of the way she's confronting issues head-on and the way she expresses, cajoles, seduces the voter. You know, an election is a seduction process where you speak to the voter for purposes of gaining the mental, agreeing more of a social, economic agreement on how you're going to impose your leadership on the people. So that seductive process is, you must be good at seducing. I mean, have you ever seen President William Ruto talking at US at a point? He was very seductive, and I could see Biden glowing. Obviously, because of the words that are used and the packaging. Obviously, most of them, if looked at, have a debate around there. But that is what election is. It's a seductive process. Now, if you come to the US vis-a-vis Africa and the world and Kamala Harris and Trump in terms of candidature, you know, in the context of US, its policy to the world is conquer and dominate. You conquer and dominate. So how do you conquer and dominate? First, of course, it's militarily. The fear that US is a superpower. That's why then you don't try to attack US and its interest. And it's a perception created. Because obviously they went to Somalia and they didn't conquer it, all right, at a point. But there is a created, messaging that it is a superpower. And obviously, because of just 2 bombs dropped in somewhere in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and the nuclear, and there's many weapons, and all that, and it's military, all of. Second is, how do you then continue to militarily dominate? Is you continue to create presence in other areas like Africa. You create a base here, you go to Guinea, you create a base, you go to Mali. And Russia, of course, has tried that, but it's never superimposed really quickly on the African context. The third one is the economic issue, where then that becomes a negotiated area, but you conquer and dominate on account of, first, you dollarize the whole economy of the world, where if you look at a shilling, you look against the dollar. If you look at a yen, it's against the dollar. If you look at anything you do at an international mercantile environment or trade environment, you look it against the dollar. And that popularizes in the mind and psyche of the world the dependency on the economic equilibrium. Today, if there's inflation in US, of course, it affects our dollar and our economy here. On account of that, we are dollarized. Although we have our shilling, but we're superimposed by the dollar. So if you look at the dollar and we're happy to say, oh, it was 180, now it is 130. I mean, it shouldn't even be that way. But we're happy to say our shilling is performing better against the dollar. And Tanzania says so, and Cameroon says so, and South Africa says so. And even now, if you are traveling abroad, you change your money into a dollar, not to some Chinese money. No, you change your money into dollar, or you work you work when you're out there. Actually, you take a calculator and say this is $500. You multiply the 130, so that you know in Kenyan context how am I surviving with my. So yes, that's the economy, and therefore you economically dominate. Now, when it comes to how then the packaging should be by the candidates, is simply how do we continue to dominate the world? And you also do it by taking the resources and giving back the least.
What do you think China is feeling as far as trade is concerned?
You see, China had a bigger war with Trump than it has with Biden. Biden more is probably the words used, but the active and the action of Donald Trump was probably to, press much as possible. He put a lot of restrictions on trade relationship between US and China. And, even the policy of China and Taiwan and US and Taiwan, Trump superimposed himself in the foreign policy of Taiwan than Biden. Biden pulled back a bit. And therefore you can see now some fly zones of China over Taiwan and so on. Why Taiwan is important is because technologically it produces the chips that enhance technology in terms of the IE drive. Even the scramble for the space dominance is still Taiwan. So it's central, and therefore the scramble for it. So you realize that there's a presumption of aggressive policy by Trump in the world policy. Kamala Harris is not very convincing, although she looks nice. The Russian President Trump said she looks nice and she smiles well. Of course, that was cajoling, probably very undermining in terms of how he put it, because of obviously he does not prefer at all.
Actually, Putin had placed a disclaimer, I think, just trying to, meddle into the political communication by saying that he has endorsed Kamala Harris. And I think that was very, very, very intriguing. Few hours to the debate that they have. But quite interesting. Victor, I am quite disturbed and concerned on the outcome of the elections with regards to the ongoing war in the Middle East. That possibly could be more pressing. Of course, the Kenyan issue because of our relationship. But then the war that has consumed over 40,000 Palestinians and has created a humanitarian crisis and something that the United Nations Security Council through the International Criminal Court had even issued warrant of arrest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. I think he's on arrest warrant rather, himself and the leaders of Hamas. So I think it's quite interesting to see what goes on. But I like what the view from Wakili, that I think possibly we can have an end to this war, or we could have coercive diplomacy for a ceasefire when Trump assumes positions. I am not saying he's going to win, but I'm saying should the elections turn his way, then I think there could be turnaround on some of the issues that are affecting the region. However, I think NATO is very concerned because he's made a statement that he would not really be supportive of Ukraine. And that tells you the relationship that he probably has with Putin. We need to talk about what is going also in Sudan here. Because I think we have been on set in the national television and international media, but then we do not call what is going on in Sudan, which is 1.5 flight from here, not far.
But I think that will be Raila's problem when he ascends into power.
Raila. So I think probably if he ascends to power. But I think there had been constant negotiation also, talking about what is the U.S. policy to Africa. The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, even as he flew from Cairo and trying to solve the Sudan issue, from what I see, probably there is a semblance of peace conversation and discussion when Burhan and Dagalo similarly are speaking. But I'm just saying that it is also an issue because then there is a spillover effect. If it spills over, then we are going to have that effect in the region, the instability. So I think the whole world around diplomacy and relationship and regional stability in respect with the elections outcome in the U.S. could also reflect then what is the relationship of President William Ruto with the one who will be elected, because then he has a good cordial relationship with Democrats. What really happens when Trump gets to power? So I think those are quite intriguing questions to look at.
That's quite intriguing because Trump never stepped a foot here in Africa. And that would really affect many African countries who majorly depend on the U.S. and vice versa. I think we'll just have to leave it at that particular point and come back home a little bit and talk about what's affecting us Kinyumbani. But it's interesting, talking about U.S. and the policies and politics and how we relate is quite important. But then, gentlemen, we are here today. The last time we talked about many things happening in the country. We had a lot of predictions here and there. Wakili, we are here today.
Yeah, we did.
If you know, you know.
Yes, if you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
You know, the deputy president now, office has changed hands. It's still the same office, but the person occupying has moved from Gachagua to Professor Kindiki. Let me put it this way. I do think that ultimately the president was looking for someone to work with. It was more of a relationship problem than the law. The law was used, obviously, to package the issue, but obviously it was a relationship issue. He couldn't work with the one that was in that office. So the packaging was his pronouncement and all, because that's what you do in law. You see, the problem with law, it pigeonholes issues. For instance, if you file for divorce, and I don't want you to file for one, but you file for divorce, there's cruelty, there's adultery, there's desertion, and if you don't go argue within those pigeonholes, you don't get a divorce. Yes, courts can refuse to give you a divorce because you have to come within those pigeonholes. Yeah. And if you don't say, was there a divorce? No. Why do you want to divorce? He snores. I mean, you won't get the divorce, right? So you must pigeonhole reasons. So we had to look for reasons, or there ought to have been reasons, and there were reasons that were seen, pigeonhole within the Constitution. A deputy president shall be removed for the following reasons: this and this and this, and upon impeachment. Yeah. Impeachment shall happen when the following things have happened. You get? So that's the law. That's the package of the law. But obviously, if you look at it, it's a relationship issue between the two occupants, principal and the deputy principal of the office of the executive of the country, the presidency. So why then, if you speak into that, is Kindiki having a better relationship with the president than the former? I think when Deputy President Gachagua, former Deputy President Gachagua, took that office, he came because of an environment that was, right for him at the time.
Yes.
Which was political. Yes, which was political. It had nothing with the relationship or past relationship between the two. Professor Kindiki, and I will tell you, I can attest to this. When you come to my office, I'm the lawyer, and you say, I have this problem. Is it land? Is it a criminal issue? Is it? You unpackage yourself to me, all right? So you emotionally unpackage yourself. You say ABCD, so where do you come from? A certain place, you give me your ID, you give me your papers, you give me your background, you give me your education, you give me this. So I know the whole of you. That's why in law, the communication between an advocate and his client is protected. I am duty bound by oath not to even repeat what you say. So if you sold your kidney, I can't say to people, oh, that guy sold his kidney. No. I can even do the transaction for the kidney or whatever it is. But I can't unpackage that to someone else. So that relationship is very deep. So you should look at the president and the deputy president, a doctor and a professor, as a client-advocate relationship before you look at them in that office. If it is so, and they went to The Hague, and Professor Kindiki defended the president at The Hague, there's a lot of unpackaging of information that he did. And therefore, a relationship deeper than friendship, obviously, one that protects the other, emerged. If you're an advocate,
is that relevant in governance
yes,
of a country?
And I will tell you this. Why I'll tell you this. In the context it is, if the president was looking at a person who is calm and understands him, and he said when he was giving his speech, that there was nobody who was communicating the government policies because nobody in that government, especially the former cabinet, understood him. So nobody unpackaged information for him. For instance, the government, the Kenya Kwanza government, he says, could have done so many things, but nobody expresses them, so the people are not communicated enough with enough context.
There's a position of a government spokesperson.
Wait, I'm coming to that. What this government has had a problem with, and is still the problem, is communication to the public. The office of the government spokesperson took time to be filled. When it was filled, it was not filled with people who are gracefully marketing the presidency, the government policies. And therefore, communication is a problem. Today, you must also have confidence in whoever is communicating to you as a government spokesperson. That office is dysfunctional, or in the alternative is no. Look, if you look at the government spokesperson and the president unpackages himself much better. Yeah. Than even the office of the
I remember on Friday he said that.
So therefore, what he's done, he's gotten his lawyer there, so they have a relationship and friendship. 2, somebody who protects him because he's a lawyer with that background. Number 3, a person who probably intellectually they have harmony because one is a doctor, one is a professor. It's supposed to be the other way in terms of academics. But one is a doctor, the deputy is a professor, and therefore, presumably, the professor will be able to understand his client more and unpackage that for him. So instead of the office of because Kindiki should have been put in the office of the government spokesperson, but now he assumed 2 roles. He has to speak for the government. Nobody's doing it. Right now, the government, the Kenyans don't listen to the spokesperson because he says nothing.
Wakili, that's a clever way of dismissing the work of Dr. Isaac Mwaura. He is a doctor. To that extent, the assumption is that this is a person who has excelled.
Dr. Mwaura is doing a good job.
Is he? Well, I'll tell you this. Back home in Kilifi, we don't know who he is. I'll tell you the truth. We don't listen to him. We don't even know him. we don't know. We don't know whether he exists in Kilifi, and I can tell you in Kwale, in Tana River, in Taita, he is not known.
I will call Dr. Mauro to come here.
Would that really cast aspersion on the office of the government spokesperson or an individual?
Do you know we all know who President Uhuru's spokesperson was?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think as Wakili has said, from a legal relationship that was built, and I think to that extent, I would agree that in fact, in trying to fill a position, then probably, and you could see the evidence when Dr. William Ruto rose to speak, you could see that he underscored the importance of relationship that ought to have been there in the working. And especially when someone of his stature feels lonely in the position and in the presidency. I don't know that information was coded particularly to pass an information and, seal any doubts that was there in the process that took place on the removal of the former deputy president by impeachment. Probably that was affirming why that took place. But I think it also gave us an opportunity for us, and I keep on saying it was a process that's tested our legal being and probably our constitutionalism. It is a process that also made sure that we as Kenyans, for the first time, because we have been seeing the impeachment of governors, impeachment of who and who, but then at the stature of the deputy president, then it was unprecedented. Then it was a question of how does it happen? What is both legal implications and the political implications? And I think within it is in the place of the legal fraternity, and especially the legal minds like Wakili, to underscore the importance of what were the legal connotations around that and how that would have a spillover effect. But yes, politically speaking, I think there's going to be a spillover effect. And I said it here, and I am very confident that one, you had seen the shift, the political tectonic shift in central Kenya. Probably others are underscoring the importance, saying that it might not really stay, because now in central Kenya, where there is east and west, and east are appreciating for the first time that such a position has landed in Mount Kenya East, probably they would try to frown when Mount Kenya West is in the complaining mood. Possibly. That was probably a political game that we are yet to see how it plays. But then, it is important lesson that whoever is ascending into power must negotiate power with an instrument, and that is a political party. Failure to do that, and then that will be a problem to you. You don't negotiate power based on trust.
Which
that we are seeing, we are negotiating because I trust you.
Former deputy president didn't have a political party.
Who?
He had UDA.
No, I'm just saying, party in Mount Kenya, that's not saying that this one was no party.
Okay.
I mean, William Ruto got with URP. There was a negotiation. Even as it was being disbanded, but he was in URP. Other leaders had got their political parties. And you could actually see that probably a lesson that all other political, and now you understand that there is some rumors that Mount Kenya is actually forming their own political party.
Okay.
To make sure that there's a negotiation. So
that's going to form a different direction.
I think for me, that is it. But we have a new deputy president. Who is going to be the deputy party leader of UDA?
I have to ask you this question, gentlemen, because now we have got two PhD holders in office. Very important for us as a country.
One in law and one in science, right?
Yes.
So, sounds of botany.
Botany.
Yes.
So what I'm going to ask is this. In terms of measuring how this government is going to work, 2 months to gauge the relationship and governance. Because when you have, these two gentlemen have a very long-standing relationship. Let's start from before 2007, we all know what happened. Do you think 2-3 months is enough to gauge whether the relationship is more of a governance or personal relationship? Wakili, I think I have only 2 minutes to do this.
Well, I think that's still little time because of the activities of Professor. I know Professor. Yeah. I doubt he's going to be very proactive in terms of expressing his own that has already been expressed by the mind and action of the president. He will be more inclined to, and because he's a lawyer and understands that, I would also probably behave in a certain context of the principle of governance, being that you need something called collective responsibility in the office of the president. There was no collective responsibility. Once you accept that principle in law of collective responsibility, you seem to mirror what the president continually does. So if the president says this, you go behind him. If you queue behind him, you keep on yesing him, all right? Because that's what collective responsibility is. In the event that you differ in opinion, you do it in the back room, back office, not at the front office. When you come to the front office, you meet the public. You meet opinion of the public. And therefore, your opinion that is made loudly and with the highest decibels, you become vocal with your opinions. It means, therefore, you may cause a friction with what the pronouncement of the president will be, and be seen to act contrary to the president. And that perception is what will create the friction. Because remember, the president is not himself per se. He has handlers. And therefore, you say something, somebody answers it in charge.
Do you think he's happy now?
The president?
Yes.
Oh, he's very happy. I can tell you he's very happy. I have handled divorces. When after a divorce and a new, another person comes into the house, even the diet changes, I can tell you, how they eat. I've seen it many times. Of course, after some time, it becomes old.
The question is,
you've got into people's houses and divorce.
With that president, how many divorces can you have?
To have a change of diet.
To have a change of diet every day.
Is the president happy?
I think it's a moment of deja vu, it's a moment of relief.
Yeah.
One of the things that you can also always point at is the probability of a clash in opinions. Sometimes, especially people and personality with that qualification. But I think that has been explained that with their relationship before and up to now there is a different kind of relationship. But then it is personal, could be cordial, but now it is work. That sometimes requires, a difference in opinion and how people view things and on delivery. So I think 2 months or 3 months is quite a short time, that I would agree. But I think moving forward, there is a number of dynamics that still comes to play. Remember what I tell you, that there could be interest that pulls back on the voter region of Mount Kenya, who would possibly want to have a conversation of Professor Kindiki to be the spokesperson of the region. That could come to play because that is the closest person to power right now. So there's a lot of play.
Let me just add on to what he said this way. 1 minute.
Yes.
It depends on what the president wants. Is the president an impatient man? Would you say he's impatient? Because if there are things that he wants Professor Kindiki to prosecute, and he prosecutes, then probably that's okay. But I think the president is impatient. Has been impatient with his cabinet. He's even told them off. I told them, look, I know more than what you know in your ministries. He's always blamed them for failure. He has also blamed the government, the entirety, for not communicating what the hard work that he does, or he perceives to be hard work himself. And therefore, he seems to be impatient with deliverables, whatever deliverables they are. So if there is terms of reference that have been given to Kindiki, and he doesn't deliver them, I can assure you that he can shop for another person. The divorce can continue.
I want us to stop this and have a change of diet, as you said, by stopping at that particular point.
Would we wish our candidates?
Yes, we all pass through that system.
So I think it's important to wish
over 960,000 candidates.
60,000 who are doing their KCSE, right?
Yes.
So the best of luck, and we hope that the ministry. There have been a lot of engagement, whether there would be exam would be leaked or not. I think every player in the education sector, quite important to give support to the candidates as they sit their exams.
Exactly. Wakili, during your days in the bush somewhere, the school I don't want to mention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit different now. The environment is much better than it was then. But again, you are, like we say, God doesn't give you a test that is so big for you to prosecute. So yes, to the candidates in the country, all the best.
All the best.
I think take your stride in it. It's a new chapter being opened. And we wish you well.
All right.
And thank God for you being the candidates for us.
As I said, let's change the diet and take a break. When we come back, we'll be now eating something different. We are divorcing GMK at this particular point. We'll meet again tomorrow. But when we come back, we're crossing over to Radio Taifa for that. I love what you said, Wakili, that when people divorce, a lot happens, change of diet and all that. Things start to grow. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Victor Lo. Good morning.
I never heard the music so sweet. I repeat.
Well, go on, me brethren, big things are going. Remember, each and every Monday we have to shell down the place with nothing but the best of smooth weight the vibes in your favorite station. You know these things, man.
Alafu kila Tuesday, kata simu tupo side, giving you Kenyan music from the 254.
And of course, you can spice up your Wednesday by enjoying blazing hot hip-hop and R&B jams.
We don't got no label. She says she want bottles.
Vibes and vibes as we go all across Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, all the way to Tanzania to give you nothing but the best on Afro Thursday. Make sure you make a date with us each and every single Friday with me, DJ_Liza Diva,
DJ Colda,
and me, Wanjiko. This is Club One Extra.
Unanifanya nisikie kunyongwa Hadija ai Mani especially ukisonga
Father, we are tired of this one major problems after another. If you don't have solution, don't raise problems, okay?
A solution to what, Warrior? What are the solutions without a problem?
I don't know. What are they?
No problem, of course.
Come in. He has just said that he comes from Nairobi, Kenya. And then how is he a Jamaican again?
Okay, maybe he's an Jamaican who is visiting Kenya.
Ninakwambia leo tunaenda kutengeneza pesa
na tugawane hiyo pesa pia. Tunakuaga na tabia ya kunitoka pesa kila wakati wewe.
Lasta. Uchaijua hizi haso zetu zinakuwa na expenses.
Are you now saying that we are girls? Including you?
Of course, girl power all the way. Omera, opportunity comes one Nyathiwa. Aito Villas Atito will be running for MCA of Sawati 1.
Naam, shukran sana wenzangu upande wa pili wa KBC Channel 1, studio yetu ya kitaifa, bila shaka kwa mjadala ambao umekuwa mwema tena kabisa, tukiangazia masuala mbalimbali tu ya kisiasa hapa nchini. Na basi tunavuka upande wa pili wa studio ambapo hatutaangazia sana siasa. Leo tutakuwa tunabadili mkondo. Karibu sana kwenye Gumzo Pevu, ambapo tunapatikana kupitia runinga yako ya Channel 1 na vile vile kupitia KBC Radio Taifa, sauti ya Mkenya. Msikilizaji, wiki iliyopita Rais Daktari William Ruto aliidhinisha mswada wa sukari wa mwaka 2022. Kwa hivyo hiyo ni kukueleza kwamba leo tunaangazia masuala ya sukari hapa nchini Kenya. Mswada huu ulikuwa unalenga kufufua sekta ya sukari nchini ambayo kwa miaka mingi imekuwa ikififia. Kwa sasa hatuzungumzii mswada bali tunazungumzia sheria ya sukari. Sheria hii itashughulikia changamoto ambazo zimelemeza sekta ya sukari ambayo kwa kawaida inafaa kuwa na manufaa zaidi kwa mkulima na pia kwa uchumi wa taifa hili. Msikilizaji na mtazamaji, sheria hii ya sukari inalenga kuwezesha kuanzishwa upya kwa bodi ya sukari ya Kenya, kuundwa kwa taasisi ya utafiti na mafunzo ya sukari ya Kenya, na vile vile utekelezaji wa ushuru wa maendeleo ya sukari. Bodi ya sukari ya Kenya itawezesha kudhibiti, kuendeleza na vile vile kukuza sekta ya sukari hapa nchini, kuratibu washikadau na vile vile kushiriki katika uundaji wa sera na kushirikiana na serikali na taasisi za utafiti hapa nchini Kenya. Na iwapo malengo ya sheria hii yatatimia, huenda basi wakulima wa miwa wakapata afueni na tabasamu tena baada ya kukosa tabasamu na afueni hiyo kwa muda mrefu baada ya sekta hiyo ya sukari kuweza kuzorota. Lakini je, serikali imeweka mikakati ipi kuhakikisha utekelezaji wa sheria hii? Basi kutusaidia kuelewa masuala haya ya sukari na kujibu maswali yetu hapa studioni, tunaye Mheshimiwa Emmanuel Wangwe ambaye ni mbunge wa Navaholo, na pia yeye ndiye alikuwa mfadhili wa sheria ama mswada huu kabla ya kufanyika sheria, ambao sasa baada ya rais kutia saini umefanyika kuwa sheria, na tena kutusaidia kuelewa shughuli hii ya sukari hapa nchini Kenya. Karibu sana mheshimiwa katika studio zetu.
Nashukuru sana.
Asante kuweza kufika kwa muda ambao unafaa.
Mimi pia nimefurahi na nafurahia kwa KBC.
Naam.
Nizungumza na watu wetu, niwaeleze hii bill, hii sheria ina maana gani kwao. Bila shaka alafu tuendelee namna hivyo.
Naam.
Yes.
Navaholo kwema?
Navaholo tuko salama salmin, lakini tumepoteza ndugu yetu Austin Oduor, ni mkazi wetu, yule makamu. Kila mtu anamfahamu, very legend wa mpira. Tutamweka mahala pake pema Jumamosi. Kwa hivyo wengine bado tuko na tunashukuru Mwenyezi Mungu. Ndio.
Poleni sana kwa hilo, na kama muda utaruhusu labda pia tutagusa tuone Navaholo mnaendelea vipi kama wananchi. Asante kufika, na kwanza kabisa tunasema pongezi, maana wewe ndio ulikuwa mfadhili mkuu wa sheria ya sukari. Kwa sasa baada ya rais kutia saini imekuwa tunasema kwanza ilikuwa mswada wa sukari, lakini sasa ni sheria baada ya rais kutia saini. Lakini tupate kujua nini hasa ilikupelekea kuamua kwamba utafadhili mswada huo kabla ya kufanyika sheria.
Kwanza kabla ni nene lolote, ni mshukuru rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya kwa kutia sahihi mswada wa 2022 sukari. Sasa ikakuwa ni sheria. Na mwambia heko, wakulima wamefurahi, wako na wewe na wanazidi kusema kwamba shukran. Pili, nirudi kwa swali lako, ni kwamba huu mswada unaitwa mswada wa wakulima, Farmers Bill, na ikakuwa sheria ya wakulima. Umetuchukua muda wa miaka 9 tangu tutembee tukitafuta namna ya kuunda sheria. Mheshimiwa wa Munyinyi ambaye alikuwa mtangulizi wangu, mimi nikawa msaidizi wake. Rais mstaafu Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta akaunda jopo task force ya sugar ambayo iliongozwa na Mheshimiwa Wycliffe Oparanya na Mheshimiwa waziri wa kilimo wakati huo, na tukaweza kutembea. Mimi nikiwa member niliweza kutembea mikutano 17 tukitoka sehemu mbalimbali za wakulima, na wakulima wakaweza kusema shida zao, zikiwemo shida ya kupata mbegu, shida ya kuuza sukari, shida ya kubeba miwa kutoka shambani, shida ya kuuza miwa, na mwisho shida ya factory. Shida mingi ziliweza kuwa zinachangia. Kwa hivyo sisi na mratibu wa wakati huo wa task force Mheshimiwa Nabina Bwera, tukaweza kuketi na tukaandika mswada nje ya bunge. Tukasema mswada huu kulingana na maoni vile wananchi wamesema, basi tukiweza kufix hili na hili na hili, bila shaka wakulima watapata nafuu. So tukaunda mswada, na wakati huo Mheshimiwa Munyinyi akauchukua, akakuja nao bungeni, akautembeza, lakini ukalala njiani. Na Mwenyezi Mungu naye akasema, Musa, watu wake watafika Misri. Hata kama Musa mwenyewe kufika, lakini Joshua aliwafikisha Kanaan kutoka Misri. Kwa hivyo tukasema tufike Misri, Kanaan mahali tunatakana kuwa. Na mimi nashukuru sana kwamba muhula huu nikauchukua mswada kutoka Senate mahali ulilalia, tumeutembeza kutoka National Assembly, ukarudi Senate, ikarudi. Na nimshukuru Speaker, wakati kulikuwa kumechacha, pia akanipa nafasi ya kuwa mwenyekiti ya mediation committee. Nikaunganisha Seneti na National Assembly, nikawa kielekezo cha mswada huo. Kwa hivyo nawashukuru wote washikadau, washukuru wabunge, washukuru maseneta kwamba tulishikana mkono, na nishukuru zaidi komiti ya agriculture katika bunge la kitaifa, mwenyekiti wao Mheshimiwa Mtunga, kwamba alikuwa mtu mwenye maoni mema zaidi mpaka mswada ukakuwa hivyo. Naam.
Na umesema vizuri kwamba ulikuwa pia mwenyekiti wa mediation committee kati ya bunge la taifa na bunge la seneti. Iweje kwamba ilikuwa lazima kwamba mabunge yote mawili yaje pamoja ndo mswada huu angalau ukapate nguvu baadaye kuweza kupitishwa kwa sheria?
Tunavyojua katiba yetu ya Kenya inazungumzia kwamba kilimo kimekuwa devolved. Kwa hivyo lazima mswada wote ambao unatoka National Assembly ukikuzia mambo ya devolved inaenda Senate. Kwa hivyo wakati ilienda Senate ikapatikana kwamba kuna maoni tofauti. Yale ambayo tumepitisha National Assembly, Senate nao wanataka kuchangia zaidi. Kwa hivyo wakati wanaporudisha mswada huo na umechangiwa, sheria ya katiba yetu ya Kenya inatuambia kwamba basi kutaundwa kamati ambayo itaunganisha yale yametoka National Assembly. Kwa hivyo tukapata wajumbe 7 kutoka Murango, seneti seneta wa Kirinyaga akawa naibu wangu. Kwa hivyo tukaweza kuunganisha hiyo vipengee karibu 8 ambavyo vilikuwa na tofauti, tukaziunganisha zikakubalika na tukarudisha kwenye National Assembly. Wabunge wenzangu wakanisaidia kupitisha, ikarudi Senate. Senate pia wakaunganisha na wakakubali, ndipo rais akasaini.
Kwa hivyo tungependa kuelewa ndo ipitishwe katika bunge la taifa na vile vile bunge la Seneti, manake umetaja vizuri kwamba ukulima umegatuliwa, kwamba ni kura ilipigwa katika bunge la taifa, kwenda katika bunge la Seneti kura ikapigwa, wakakubaliana kwa kauli moja kwamba huu mswada una maana kwa mkulima.
Ikakubalika. Niseme vipengee vichache ambavyo vilikuwa na utata. Kipengee kama umesema hapo katika taarifa ya kwanza kwamba kuna sugar development levy.
Ndio.
Katika sugar development levy kuna vitu viwili muhimu ambavyo vilikuwa na address mambo ya wakulima. Mambo ya pesa ambayo itakwenda mashambani kule kutumika kutengeneza barabara. Senators walikuwa nasema hiyo pesa ikwende katika county government. Na sisi National Assembly tulikuwa tunasema hiyo pesa ikwende katika Kenya Road Board katika KERA. Sasa ikakuwa hatuwezi vuta ni kuvute, tutaamua katikati kutakwenda wapi. Tukasema basi turudi pale awali, Sugar Board ilikuwa inajisimamia yenyewe. Kwa hivyo tupatie hizi hela Sugar Board, na kwa sababu board ya sugar tumeweka director kutoka county government, board ya sugar tumeweka director kutoka national government. Wao ndio watakuwa wanaketi, wana harmonize, wanakubaliana barabara gani tunaenda kulima. Kwa hivyo tukaweza kuridhika na tukakubaliana hivyo. Kitu cha pili kilikuwa cha utata, ni kitu inaitwa catchment area. Kitu ambacho mkulima wa miwa hangefurahia kusikia, kitu inaitwa zoning. Zoning inamaanisha kwamba wewe unafungiwa katika factory moja. Hiyo factory dadangu ikifunga, hauna mahali na kwenda. Hiyo factory ikikufa, hauna mahali na kwenda. So sisi tukaamua kusema kwamba tutaweka kitu inaitwa catchment areas. Catchment area inamaanisha tunachukua factory kama 4-5, tunaziweka pamoja, tunaita area moja. Na hiyo catchment area ndio itatumika kama kielelezo cha kupiga kura, kupata director. Kwa hiyo body kutakuwa na directors 5. Tumeweka catchment areas 5, kumaanisha kwamba mkulima atajisimamia mwenyewe. Na ukipata kwamba Senate walikuwa nasema hiyo isikue chanzo cha election, sisi tukasema no, haiwezi kubalika. Hiyo ndio ikue elective unit ya mkulima ili ajitetee katika body. Kwa hivyo tukaweza tukavutana, lakini tukakubaliana kwamba shida ni nini? Shida ilikuwa counties mbili, county ya Nandi na Kericho. Nandi walikuwa wanajiona ni minority katika central catchment area, kwa sababu Kisumu ni pana zaidi. Kisumu ina wakulima wengi, lakini tukasema kwamba ili tuweze kukubaliana kama Wakenya, tutaiga mfano wa African Union Commission ile ambayo baba Raila anapambania. Unapata kwamba kuna ile kitu inaitwa rotation. Sasa hii tumepata chairman kutoka East Africa. Inchi zote za Afrika zitapiga kura, lakini chairman atakuwa proposed kutoka East Africa. Kwa hivyo tukasema kielelezi kamili kitakuwa ni county. Kama mtu anatoka Kericho for example, muhula huu tutasimamisha watu wote kutoka Kericho, lakini wataomba kura eneo lote catchment area, watu kutoka Kisumu mpaka Nandi. So ikaweza kubalika kwamba hiyo rotational itapeana suluhu mwafaka na tukakubaliana hivyo. Kwa hivyo hayo ndio maneno ambayo yalikuwa matata kwa wingi, matata zaidi katika mediation committee ambayo tulipitia.
Baadaye kidogo tutaona baadhi ya changamoto ambazo wakulima wanapitia. Ulitaja japo tungependa kujua kama labda kurejeshwa tena katika bodi ya sukari na ile tunasema sugar development levy kuwekwa pale na research institute kama itasaidia katika kutatua baadhi ya hayo masuala. Lakini kabla tufike pale utakuta kwamba maeneo ya ukuzaji sukari sana ni Nyanza na maeneo ya magharibi mwa Kenya, na tumeona kwamba kidogo wakulima wanalalama labda uongozi mwafaka haujaonekana ili kwamba wao waweze kuhakikisha kwamba sukari yao ama miwa yao inaweza kufika mahali ambapo inafaa. Na uzuri ni kwamba umetaja kwamba kwa sasa ameondoa zoning kama nimekupata vizuri. Na sijui mnafanyaje kuhakikisha kwamba sasa wakulima na imani katika uongozi ambao watapewa kuhakikisha kwamba mambo ya sukari, mambo ya miwa inasonga mbele.
Dadangu, tuseme kwamba shida kubwa kwa binadamu ni pesa. Unapoonyesha mtu pesa, unaweza mpeleka kona yote. Shida ambayo ilikuwa kubwa ni vyama vya wakulima, outgrow organizations and farmers associations. Hawakuwa na pesa ile such that mtu yote ambaye angependa kuleta sukari angeweza kuwa compromise, na wananyamaza kwa sababu hawana hela, wao ni watu wa kawaida. Sasa tumesema hivi, badala ya kwenda kuomba pesa kwa ile mtu ambaye atakandamisha mkulima, tumewapatia 5% farmer associations kutoka kwa sugar development levy, pesa ambayo itawajenga in terms of capacity, pesa ambayo itawajenga in terms of kufanya kazi yao ya kurepresent wakulima. 5% itatoka kwa sugar development levy kwenda kwa farmer associations, so that hakuna mtu ambaye na represent mkulima atakwenda kuomba tajiri ili anyanyasa wakulima. Kwa hivyo tuna imani kwamba kupitia kwa hii sheria tumeweza kuhakikisha kwamba farmer associations are going to be strong, na zikiwa strong zitapigania haki ya mkulima. Pili, shida ambayo tumekuwa nayo kubwa ni kupata mbegu mbaya. Mbegu sio kila shamba la Western linazalisha mbegu aina ya Nigeria 29, aina ya mbegu fulani, hapana. Mashamba yana tofauti. Kwa hivyo tumesema inatuhakikishia kwamba mbegu fulani itafanya vizuri Lower Nyanza, hapa Western itafanya vizuri sehemu fulani. Kwa hivyo tumeweza kusuluhisha shida ya mbegu. In addition, kwa hiyo Sugar Board itasaidia kucontrol importation ya sukari.
Baadaye tutakuja pale kwa the Kenya Sugar Board, manake imewekwa tena upya, tangalia majukumu yake. Lakini kwa sababu tayari umeshaanza kuzungumzia changamoto za wakulima, labda tuziangazie zote. Katika utafiti wenu umetaja kwamba moja yazo alikuwa analalama kuhusu mambo ya zoning, ndio uongozi umekuwa tatizo. Umetaja kuhusiana na tatizo la mbegu. Labda changamoto zingine ambazo umegundua sana sana katika maeneo ya magharibi na Nyanza kwa wakuzaji wa miwa na sukari ni gani?
Kumekuwa na shida ya transportation. Shida ambayo mkulima anazalisha miwa 40-50 kilometers away from the factory, na yule mkulima anasafirisha miwa kutoka shambani hadi factory. Sasa tunaangalia mambo inaitwa cane testing units, ambayo tutakuwa tunalipisha mkulima kutokana na sucrose content, yale maji ambayo tutavuna kutoka kwa miwa. What happens, ingekuwa vizuri kueleza kwa Kimombo, lakini wacha nitajaribu kwa Kiswahili. Ile ambayo inafanyika ni kwamba mkulima anapoleta miwa inaanguka kwenye barabara, na tunamlipa kulingana na uzito, mizani ya miwa. Inamaanisha ile imeanguka kwa barabara imebaki. Ile imechomwa na jua ile imebaki. Ikichomwa na jua uzito unarudi chini. Kumaanisha hiyo yote tunapoteza. Sasa ukiangalia katika bili yetu, Kent Testing Unit CTU ni emphasis kubwa ambayo achievement ya kwanza ni kwamba tutakuwa tunatoa lipa mkulima kulingana na maji, uzito wa maji, quantity ya maji ambayo amezalisha kutoka kwa miwa yake. That's a big plus. Number 2, wakulima wakishapeana pesa, wakishalipwa gharama ya miwa, hakuna lolote. Sasa tunasema wewe factory yako unazalisha nini? Ethanol. Ethanol ni mazao ambayo iko na bei ghali kuliko sukari. Sasa tuangalie mambo ya ethanol, by product ambayo imetoka kwa miwa itakuwa appropriated pia kwa mkulima. Ndio maana ulikuwa nasikia Mheshimiwa Rais akizungumza maneno matatu. Wale ambao walikuwa nakataa mkulima asipate pesa zaidi mfukoni. Na Mheshimiwa Rais akaweza kuisukuma mpaka imekuwa sasa sheria kwa sasa. Kumaanisha kwamba mkulima sasa atakuwa analipwa vile wakulima majani chai wanalipwa, bonus ya kwanza, bonus ya pili. Hapo ndio mahali tumefika na tutakwenda hapo.
Kwa hivyo moja wapo ya vitu ambavyo wakulima wa sukari pia ama miwa wamekuwa kilalamikia, umetaja ndio masuala ya usafirishaji, miwa itaanguka njiani na kufika pale, lakini pale kwenye bei kiwango ambacho wanapata, jambo la kwanza. Na jambo la pili pia tatizo limekuwa kwamba wanachukua muda sana kulipwa zile pesa zao baada ya kupeleka miwa yao katika kiwanda kile cha kusaga ile miwa. Sijui hapo umeshughulikia vipi kuhakikisha kwamba angalau wanapata haki baada ya shughuli nzima hiyo ya miezi kadhaa, akipeleka miwa yake anapata pesa zake kwa mapema.
Kwanza hapo turudi nyuma kidogo, kuna mahali inaitwa pricing committee ambayo tumeweka katika sheria hii. Ile pricing committee ambayo tuko nayo kwa sasa ni ile tu waziri alifikiria akaitisha pricing committee, haina kichwa, haina mbele. Sasa tumeistructure, tumeipatia vipengee ya kuangalia kuhakikisha kwamba bei ya miwa inaambatana na wakati. Na katika hii Sugar Development Levy kuna hela ambayo tunaweka kando kama buffer kucushion price fluctuation. Wakati bei imeteremka, huenda waziri wa kilimo aka-access hiyo pesa, amoderate nayo wakulima ili wasipate loss. Kwa hivyo tumecushion kutokana na hii sheria. Na tukisha cushion hapo mahali, inamaanisha kwamba na tumefungua viwanda 3-4. Competition inaenda kukua katika areas za wakulima. Kwa hivyo ile factory ambayo itakuwa ni imezembea haitapata miwa, itabidi utoe shati, utoe nguo, ushike jembe, ukimbie. Kwa hivyo tumeset competition. Competition haitakubali factory izembe. Mwenye matazembea
kwa mfano sasa mimi ni mkulima wa miwa, nimepeleka miwa yangu kwa mojawapo ya viwanda maeneo ya magharibi mwa Kenya. Nichukue kama muda gani nisubiri pesa zangu zitoke?
Tuko na vitengo viwili. Kuna vitengo ya factories za serikali ambazo zimezembea. Nisikudanganye dada yangu, ukiangalia factories za serikali zimezembea nyingi, kama sio nyingi karibu zote. Lakini private factories zinachukua siku 7 zinakulipa. Mimi ni mshuhuda. Mimi mwenyewe ni mkulima, niko na miwa. Nilianza kulima miwa 1984. Namba yangu ya miwa ni Sideko 84/84. Hapo ndio wakati nilianza kulima miwa. Mpaka wa sasa mimi ni mkulima. Mwezi mmoja umepita, nimesupply miwa mingi sana Butali Sugar. Kabla nimalize stocks zangu katika shambani ya kwanza nilikuwa nimelipwa. Kumaanisha kwamba inalipa within the right time. West Kenya wanalipa. Ukienda Busia Sugar inalipa. Private mills zote zinalipa on time. Shida ni hizo serikali ambazo sheria hii rais akiitia kidole vile alifanya, inaenda kutengeneza factories ambazo zimezembea zirudi katika mkono wa private. Na hapo mimi nitakubaliana na rais ili tuangalie kwamba zile factories za kiserikali ziangaliwe factory. Mahali hatutakubali ni mashamba yetu. Mashamba irudi county government zichunge, lakini factory tupate mfadhili aweze kuweka pesa na ziamke. Nikupatie kwa mfano dada yangu, Mumias Sugar. Kabla Mumias Sugar ifike mahali ilikuwa imefika, wengi tulisema haiamki. Sasa mfadhili wa kibinafsi amekuja, Mumias Sugar inakulipa siku 7 na inafanya kazi.
Kwa sasa umeridhika vile kampuni ya Mumias inafanya kazi?
Vile nimesimama hivi na aridhika na Mumias Sugar, mfadhili mwenye amefika amefanya kazi na naona matunda yake iko mzuri. Niko na Weybridge katika Navakholo yangu na kuhakikishia hakuna complaint kutoka sehemu zangu. Eti mtu amecheleweshwa kulipwa pesa. Complaint inaweza kuwa ya agronomy, ni sawa. Complaint ya kubeba miwa ni sawa, lakini complaint ya kucheleweshwa kulipa pesa sijapata hiyo complaint. No.
Kwa Mumias Sugar, lakini kwa zingine labda kidogo bado zipo
Kidogo zile za government bado ziko na shida.
Na hapo ndo tunataka kujua kama sheria hii italeta suluhu mwisho wa kwisha. Ilikuwa hata yule ambaye anapeleka miwa yake kule katika viwanda vya serikali akapate haki.
Italeta suluhu kwa sababu suluhu ni moja tu, ni kubinafsisha. Hakuna suluhu nyingine. Kubinafsisha. Kwa nini viwanda vya serikali hafanyi mzuri? Ni kwa sababu manager ako Nairobi. Manager ni waziri wa kilimo, ameketi Nairobi. Ukitaka policy itatoka kwa waziri wa kilimo, ikuje kwa PS wa kilimo, ikuje kwa secretary wa kilimo, ikuje kwa MD wa kilimo, MD wa factory, ndio pate decision. Commercial decisions are instant. Kama kuna shida shambani, MD yuko apeane suluhu. Hapo ndio tunachelewa. Kwa hivyo tukibinafsisha factories za public, bila shaka zitafanya mzuri.
Naam, baadaye tutafuatilia tusikie wananchi wanasemaje kuhusu hilo. Kumbuka iwapo najiunga nasi kwa sasa kupitia Channel 1, tunazungumzia masuala ya sukari na sheria ya sukari Sugar Bill mwaka 2022 ambayo rais aliweza kutia sahihi Novemba mosi, mswada ambao uliweza kudhaminiwa na mbunge wa Navakholo Emmanuel Wangwe ambaye tuko naye hapa studioni. Unatupata moja kwa moja pia kupitia KBC Radio Taifa, sauti ya Kenya. Mojawapo pia mambo ambayo yamekuwa kitendeka ni kwamba mkulima atajizatiti, atapeleka miwa yake katika kiwanda chochote kile, lakini katika hizi jitihada zote amechukua miezi mingi, mbolea amejukumika, amegaramika, lakini bado uagizaji wa sukari unafanyika kutoka mataifa ya nje. Tatizo liko wapi? Kwamba hatuna sukari ya kutosha, wakulima wetu hawazalishi ya kutosha, ama namna gani?
Ukweli wa mambo ni kwamba kumekuwa na ulaghai mwingi, haswa kutokana na kwamba hakukuwa na sheria mwafaka ya kufungia importation ya sukari. Ndipo naona regulations za sukari zilikuja bungeni zikiwa half-baked, kwa sababu ziliangalia mambo ya Crops Act badala ya Sugar Act ambayo tulikuwa tunazungumzia. Kwa hivyo hakukuwa na sheria mwafaka ya kuzuia importation ya sukari. Na Kenya inahitaji 84,000 metric tons ya miwa kila mwezi kutumika. Na kwa sasa kwa mara ya kwanza ama mara ya pili na tatu, mazao ambayo tumepata katika uzalishaji wa sukari for the last 3 months imekuwa ikitosha. Hakujakuwa na shortage ya sukari kwa sababu mazao kutokana na record ambayo tuko nayo inatosha. Wakulima factories zetu saa hizi zinazalisha 86,000 metric tons a month, zina surpass ile quantity ya importation. Kwa hivyo hii sheria imesema hivi, wao directors wa Sugar Board ndio, ama Sugar Board as an entity ndio itakuwa inaidhinisha importation ya sukari. Na sasa tumesema hivi, tuma mwizi kushika mwizi mwingine. Ndipo we import sukari lazima ipitie kwamba hao wakulima walipigia director kura, yeye anajua Mumias Sugar iko na magunia ngapi kwa store, Nzoia Sugar ina magunia ngapi kwa store. Hawezi peana hawezi approve kwamba importation ya sukari ikuje na ilhali mahali ametoka kuna magunia kwa shelf. Kwa hivyo tumesema tutumie wao kutusaidia, why should we import sukari ilhali nyuma mahali umetoka kuna sukari.
Kwa sasa sukari inaagizwa kutoka mataifa ya nje.
Kwa sasa as we speak now, sina habari kwamba last 2-3 months kuna importation. Sina habari. Ile habari ninayo ni kwamba sukari ambayo local factories mezalisha imetosha consumption ya Kenya kwa sasa. Kwa hivyo hakuna haja ya importation ya sukari. Kama kunayo, labda nitapata hiyo habari kesho. Lakini kwa mahali nilipo sasa sina habari kwamba kuna importation. Lakini kumekuwa na importation hapo nyuma ambayo ilikuwa inasukumwa na business moguls na wenye nia ya kuleta kupata hela. Tuangalie kwa mfano Mercury, ile last parliament tulizungumzia mambo ya sukari iliyokuwa na Mercury. Hoja yake ilikuwa nini? Wafanyabiashara walikuwa wanataka pesa tu kuleta kufaidika, na wakapata window kidogo ambayo waziri wa fedha alipitisha, na wakaleta sukari mingi zaidi kushindwa kiasi. Ukiangalia katika mswada wangu tumesema kwamba kila sukari ilipiwe ushuru. Kulikuwa na kitu inaitwa industrial sugar. Katika sheria ambazo zimekuwa hapo awali haikuwa inalipiwa ushuru. Wafanyabiashara wakaona dirisha ya kupitisha sukari, wanaleta sukari kama industrial sugar ili hali ni table sugar. Kwa hivyo sasa tumezipa kupitia sheria hii, tumesema wewe ukileta sukari ni white, ni black, ni red, yote ilipiwa ushuru.
Lakini hata hivyo unaweza kuta mheshimiwa kwamba tunasema kwamba sukari haitaagizwa, maana sasa tumesema kuna sukari ya kutosha hapa nchini, viwanda vyetu vinasaga na vile vile kuweza kuweka sukari ya kutosha katika maduka. Lakini si ajabu utakuta kwa mfano karatasi ambalo limeandikwa Dora Sugar Company, lakini hiyo sukari sio kampuni ya Dora ya hapa nchini.
Ni kweli, ndiposa nikasema vile ninavyoketi sasa hivi, ile report niko nayo inamaanisha, inasema kwamba tusikuwe na importation ya sukari for now, inatosha. Hatuwezi sema kesho haitakuwa in case isipatikane, lakini for the last 3 months sukari yenye imepatikana Kenya hii inatosha, haihitaji importation ya sukari, tunayo ya kutosha. So wale watu ambao wako na sukari ya kuitwa majina yao kama wewe Dora, mimi Emmanuel, unaenda kwa hoteli unapata imeandikwa fulani fulani, waendelee kufanya hivyo wakinunua sukari yetu, hamna shida. Lakini wakwende Mumias Sugar, wakwende West Kenya, wakwende Sony Sugar, wanunue sukari yao kutoka huko, kisha waweze kuileta kwenye meza yao, waite hiyo majina. Lakini sio kwamba waite hiyo majina wakileta sukari kutoka nje. We now need to save on forex. Ile pesa yetu ya kulipa Brazilian, waje hiyo pesa baki hapa Kenya. Ndio
sababu niliuliza hivyo. Ni unakumbuka kabla kampuni ya sukari ya Mumias kuendelea na kazi zake vizuri, tulikuwa tunaona sukari ya kampuni ya Mumias, hali Mumias haikuwa inasaga sukari.
Ni kweli, mpaka wa sasa unapata Nakumat iko sukari ilikuwa inaitwa Nakumat, na Nakumat haizalishi. Na hiyo ndio mwanzo, huo ndio ulikuwa mwanzo wa kulagai watu na kuleta sukari kutoka nje, kusema kwamba hii sukari ni yetu, kwenda kuleta sukari kama industrial sugar ili hali ni table sugar, itajikuta kwenye maduka kupitia majina tofauti tofauti. Huo ndio mwanya ambao hii sheria imeziba. Sasa hiyo nafasi itakuwa haiko. Ikiwepo akwende local factory anunue huko sukari, basi ndio aweze kusema hivyo. Lakini isipokuwa sukari inatosha, bodi ya sugar itaambiwa na itatoa takwimu kwamba hii ndio ripoti yetu, na tunasema tunaleta sukari kiasi fulani na italetwa na huyu na huyu na huyu.
Katika sheria ambayo rais ama ule mswada ambao tayari ni sheria rais baada ya kutia sahihi Novemba mosi, moja yazo ni kurejeshwa tena kwa bodi ya sukari, Kenya Sugar Board. Majukumu yake ni yapi aswa na yanamfaidi vipi mkulima?
Nimeguzia kadha wa kadha wakati nilipokuwa nikizungumza, lakini tuangalie aswa jukumu kubwa la body ni kumanage the sector in totality, kuangalia sector at 360 degrees, nyuma, mbele, kushoto, kulia, kwamba sekta ya sukari inanawiri. Body itakuwa na directors ambao watakuwa kiserikali, kukiwa na PS wa finance, PS wa agriculture, na kukiwa na wale 5 elected board members. Haswa kiini kikubwa cha body kitakuwa kumanage the sugar sector, kuangalia importation ya sukari, wao ndio watapitisha. Kutakuwa na kitu ambacho mimi nikiwa mchanga nikianza kulima mwanzoni, kulikuwa na watu walikuwa wanaitwa inspectors, au wale watu walikuwa wanakwenda mashambani kuangalia kwamba hii miwa inakuwa grown kwa in the right way ama inatumika vizuri. Sasa tunarudisha wale inspectors kutupitia kwa Sugar Board. Ita appoint inspectors mara pili, production inspectors shambani, na pia itakuwa naangalia lile swali umeniuliza, sukari inapatikana madukani reja reja. Kutakuwa na inspectors wa kuangalia kwamba sukari inapozalishwa itakuwa inatembea namna gani madukani. Kwa hivyo kutakuwa na both production inspectors na wale inspectors katika soko. Ndio.
Naam. Na kando na Sugar Board pia kuna Kenya Research Training Institute. Sijui taasisi hii ya utafiti umuhimu wake utakuwa upi kabisa katika kusaidia kufufua sekta ya sukari hapa nchini?
Inaitwa Kenya Sugar Research Institute.
Yes.
Aswa tulikuwa tunakubaliana kwamba itapatikana kule Kibos kwa sababu tayari kuna infrastructure pale. Research Institute iko na maana mingi. Ukiona wale welekezi wake ni professor kutoka universities, wale watu ambao wamesomea research mzuri in terms of mambo mawili matatu. Cha kwanza ni ukulima, kuzalisha mbegu, ambayo kufanya research, utafiti katika mbegu ambayo inastahili na udongo fulani. Cha pili ni kufanya research kufuatana na production. Hii mbegu wakati unapozalisha itakupatia sucrose content kiasi gani? Number 3, hii mbegu unapozalisha tunataka kutoka kwa miezi 18 ya kuzalisha miwa mpaka miezi 12 au 9. Unapanda miwa within 9 to 12 months umeharvest. Inamaanisha researchers lazima wafanye kazi mzuri, mbegu fulani ipatikane. Ukienda katika sahi kari utapata research ya hiyo mbegu iko but iko kidogo. So tunataka ku-enhance, ndio maana tumewapatia hela. We-enhance production. Wakulima ni wengi. Tunaweza pata mass production kupitia kwa institute yetu ya Research, Sugar Research Institute. Hiyo ndio kazi ambayo tumewapatia.
Ambayo kwa sasa umesema itakuwa Kibos.
Huenda tumepropose, hatujaandika kwenye sheria, lakini wakati tulikuwa tunazungumza katika mikutano yetu, watu walikuwa na propose kwamba ikuwe Kibos, mahali ambapo kulikuwa na ile defunct Sugar Research, kuna uwanja ya kutosha, space iko ya kutosha next to Kibos, ya Kibos factory, lakini hapo hiyo area inaitwa Kibos. Kuna research institute hapo.
Mara nyingi unakuta kwamba ndio tunazungumzia masuala ya utafiti, lakini japo umesema mmewapa hela, wakati shughuli inaanza inafika mahali wanasema kwamba hatuna hela za kutosha za kufanya huu utafiti. Changamoto kama hiyo labda ni kitu ambacho mnaazimia huenda ikatokea, na mmejipanga vipi kuhakikisha kwamba kwa vyote vile shughuli ya utafiti haiwezi kukoma kwa sababu ya ukosefu wa hela za kutosha?
Unajua planning, mzungu sana anasema planning is a continuous process. Kwa hivyo tunapofikiria leo kwamba tuko na shilingi 2 isipotosha, bila shaka tutatafuta. Cha muhimu ni nia. Panapo nia lazima njia patikane. Kwa hivyo nia ipo kwamba lazima ili sekta iweze kufanikia, lazima kukuwe na nia ya kufanya research. Na research ya mbegu, research ya production, na research ya age, how long are we going to take hii miwa katika shamba ili iweze kuwa harvested. Hiyo ndio wakati ndio research ambayo tunafanya. Kwa hivyo pesa, hawezi sema pesa itatosha. Kesho mwingine atakuja na teknolojia yake aseme ni milioni kadhaa, mwingine ni 1000 kadhaa. Kwa hivyo tutasema kile tulicho nacho mkononi tutaanza nayo. Iwapo tutataka zaidi, tutauliza wafadhili. Ndio.
Naam. Na mojawapo wa mambo pia mnaangazia ni kuboresha maisha ya mkulima. Mwisho wa kuisha, ndio tumezungumzia kwamba atapeleka miwa yake sasa, na mnatazamia kwamba watakuwa napata malipo yao kwa haraka, lakini pia vile muda unazidi kusonga na miaka inasonga, unakuta pia mashamba yale ya kufanya ukulima yanazidi kuwa madogo tena zaidi. Unakuta kwamba mkulima sasa hata akipanda ile miwa kukidhi mahitaji yake na mahitaji ya taifa, kisukari inakuwa changamoto. Sijui vipi pia mnaangazia kuhakikisha kwamba mkulima yule ambaye amejitolea kabisa anaweza kapata shamba zaidi kama yuko tayari. Natoka magharibi mwa Kenya, na kuna wakati watu walikuwa wanang'oa miwa, wanasema acha tung'oe miwa tupande mahindi. Wengine wanasema hatuna mashamba ya kutosha. Mnamsaidia vipi mkulima kuwa na nafasi ya kutosha kufanya ukulima?
Kwanza niwashukuru watu wangu wa Navakholo sana tu zaidi kwamba wao hawakung'oa miwa. Wale wachache ambao walikuwa wameng'oa miwa sasa wamerudi mashambani, wamepanda miwa. Acreage ya miwa inazidi kuongezeka. Langu ni kusema kwamba ulicho nacho mkononi ndio chako. Ukiwa na nusu eka na upande robo miwa, ulime robo katika ukulima wa cash crop ndogo ya chakula, yote itakusaidia. Why are we doing, kwa nini tunafanya research ya miwa? Ili unapozalisha miwa over a period ya 12 months ama 9 months inakusaidia turn around, kumaanisha kwamba acreage zilikuwa mingi, tuna reduce rudi ndogo, turnaround ikuwe mingi na itakusaidia. So ile itasaidia mkulima ni kwamba turnaround itapanda. Tutoke 18 to 9 months, inamaanisha hata kama uko na robo na ukate mara pili kwa mwaka, within the 18 months ukate mara pili, utapata vile ulikuwa na eka moja. Hiyo ndio vile tunajaribu kufanya. That's why research ni muhimu, so that ubit ile wakati ya delay in harvesting, delay in delivery wale ya sucrose content, na ukienda sucrose content pia kuna ile manufaa ingine juu yake. Kwa hivyo hii ndio njia vile tunachukua ambayo itasaidia mkulima, given that mashamba inaanza kurudi chini. Na hiyo pia inafanya tumsaidie, tushukuru rais. Mambo ya housing, wakati tunaangalia mambo ya housing, tusiangalie tu kwamba tunasaidia watu wa town. Haswa watu wengi tutatoka reserve, tuache shamba kidogo, tuende tuishi town, lakini shamba ilimwe. Kwa hivyo it's a two-way economics. Lazima watu wa Kenya tuangalie mara pili. Tunaposema sio housing na ni housing, tuangalie kwamba rais pia anatusaidia. Hapa mbele hakutakuwa na shamba, lakini kama uko na nyumba kwa hewani, kwa ghorofa juu, na ile nusu eka ama 0.5 uko nayo, utapanda miwa, utapanda mbolea, mbegu ya chakula fulani. Ndio.
Na muda si mrefu naje upande wa pili tupokee simu chache upande wa Radio Taifa sauti ya Mkenya. Lakini kuna jambo moja ambalo pia hujitokeza sana sana wakati wa kampeni na wanasiasa hasa kutoka magharibi mwa Kenya hata kitaifa. Swala zima la sukari, miwa, ukulima wa miwa linatumiwa kama chombo cha kufanya kampeni, kisha baada ya uchaguzi kukamilika maisha ya mwananchi yanarudi kuwa pale pale. Kwa sasa umesema mambo yako sawa, tunazalisha sukari ya kutosha, lakini sijui tutasustain kwa muda gani, isiwe kwamba tena tufikapo mwaka 2027 tunarejea pale pale tena tunatumia kama campaign tool.
Kwanza niseme sisi ambao tuko katika siasa ni sawa na wale ambao wako katika kanisa. Unapata mtu wa Mungu kanisani anahubiri neno la Mungu. Sisi tuko katika siasa mpaka tupige siasa. Na siasa iko mambo mawili. Maendeleo yale ambayo unakuzia real day to day life. Hiyo ndio siasa. Ukiongea kitu enda umfanyie yule mtu ambaye umemuomba kura yako. Hiyo ndio siasa. Ukweli uko kanisani, lakini siasa ni uongo, na uongo unashikwa baada ya miaka 5. Wewe unapodanganya miaka 5 ikiisha unarudishwa nyumbani. Unaposema utaleta miaka 5 ishi umeleta, utaomba tena utarudishwa kwenye bunge. Kwa hivyo ni kujikata kuwili wewe mwenyewe. Na mambo ya sukari haswa Western inatumika kisiasa, kwa sababu hiyo ndio factory ambayo tumekuwa nayo kwa muda mrefu. Watu wetu walianza kulima miwa 1968, wengi just after independence kidogo. Factory ya kwanza hapo Pan Paper, na unapata mumiasi inaingia. Kwa hivyo tumejua mambo ya miwa kutoka zamani, na ndiposa kila mwanasiasa anazungumzia jinsi ya kuimprove wakulima. Lakini mimi nasema asante kwa watu wangu wa Navaholo. Nilisema nitawaletea sheria, na sheria ndio hii tumeleta. Ile naomba tu sasa ni kwamba kitu cha muhimu wakati wa celebration haswa sio sasa. Wabunge wenzangu tushikane mkono, tumalize regulations. Hii ni framework. Now how to operationalize the act. Iko kwa regulations. Tushikane mkono sisi wabunge, wakulima, pamoja na any person of goodwill katika sugar sector. Tushikane mkono tukuwe na the right regulations ambazo zitaambatana na sheria ya sukari ambayo imetolewa.
Asante, umejibu swali langu, maana nilikuwa nataka kujua ufuatiliaji wa hii sheria. Mtafuatilia vipi kuhakikisha kwamba mkulima na faidi? Nitakuwa napokea simu chache upande wa pili wa KBC Radio Taifa. Alafu pia na maswali mawili naona kutoka kwa wasikilizaji Radio Taifa. Iwapo Joyce unanipata, maswali kama 3 hivi kutoka kwa wasikilizaji.
Naam, bila shaka mwenzangu upande wa pili vivyo hivyo. Hello Radio Taifa.
Huyo Pastor Jackson Hamasi Kisilunalo wa Malaba Dotalika Paras nikiwa hapa Nakuru. Na kwanza naheshimu huyu mbunge kwa sababu kwa wabunge wote wa Western yeye ndiye amefanya jambo muhimu kutetea wananchi na kupeleka hiyo mswada ya miwa Western, kwa sababu hizo ndio kampuni zetu. Nikiwa mmoja ambaye ninalima miwa. Sasa ile kitu namuuliza, miwa ambayo inaanguka kwa barabara ni mingi sana. Unaweza toka tractor inaweza toka kwa lakini nampongeza sana. Yeye ndio mbunge ambaye amefanya kazi ya ubunge kabisa.
Naam. Okay, mwenzangu Joyce Kahiga, naona kama kidogo simu za tatiza, sio? Utaniruhusu tuweze kuendelea upande huu wa pili. Mheshimiwa, umepata hilo swali ama simu ziko sawa?
Bila shaka simu ziko sawa. Radio Taifa.
Ujambo Doramanya.
Si jambo.
Ni Omar Papa Saina kutoka Lesotho na Kaunti. Ningependa kuuliza mheshimiwa, kwa nini sukari yenye iko Mumias iko Nzoia ikiandikwe Kenya Chuka number 1? Kwa sababu mngeandika majina tofauti ili tuwapiga hawa kwa wametusumbua kwa sukari yetu. Shukran.
Hello. Naam, Joyce, wacha turejee upande huu mwingine kwa sababu ya muda.
Bila shaka.
Tuyajibu haya maswali. Tuanze na swali hili na maswali mengine ambayo wasikilizaji wametuma, na tuna dakika kama 8-9 hivi kuweza kumaliza. Sukari ambayo ama miwa ambayo inaanguka, ulikuwa umegusia. Ameuliza swali ambalo ni la muhimu sana. Kwa nini isipimiwa kwa shamba tu? Wakibeba hata wakiangusha ni shauri yao kwamba imeshapimiwa kwa shamba.
Huo ndio ukweli wa mambo, na ndipo maana nilikuwa nimekuzia mwanzo. Kwanza nimshukuru huyo ndugu yetu kutoka kule Kabras, amesema ukweli. Ukweli ni kwamba miwa inapotoka shambani kufika factory imeanguka mingi. CTC, Cane Testing Unit, watakuwa wanapimia shambani kidogo. Ile juice ambayo tunapata kutoka kwa miwa shambani itakuwa corroborated na ile juice wamepata kwa factory. Kumaanisha kwamba hiyo leakage ya miwa ikianguka itakuwa ni shida ya factory, sio shida ya mkulima. Kwa hivyo suluhu ni kwamba Cane Testing Unit CTU iwekwe mara moja, na kupitia kwa Sugar Act, it's part of the mandatory infrastructure ya kuweka katika ukulima wetu wa miwa. Ndugu yetu kutoka Nandi ameuliza kwa nini tusipiga marufuku au wakora kuandika majina katikati. Sukari itwe sukari, kama inatoka Mumias itwe Mumias, kama ni Nzoia itwe Nzoia, kama ni Soin itwe Soin. Huo ndio ukweli wa mambo. Na ndugu yangu niseme kwamba nimesema nataka regulations ikuje mara moja, na hiyo ni kitu ya kuweka katika regulation on how sugar inajulikana sukari kivipi. Ijulikane sukari kama iko packaged kwa sugar kwa karatasi yako. Kwa hivyo hayo ni maoni mzuri, na nitapendekeza ndugu yangu, siku ile unasikia kwamba bunge inaleta maoni ya wananchi kule nyumbani, the nearest factory yako, karibu sana usonge ili iandikishwe kwamba hayo maoni ni vile pia nyinyi mna propose, so that tufanye kile kitu ambacho mkulima anataka. Lakini umefikiria vizuri, na huo ndio ukweli wa mambo. Kupitia regulation tuweke hiyo ili tuwafunge kabisa. Tuweke katika kaburi la kusahau.
Naam. Kuna msikilizaji anafuatilia na mtazamaji kutoka kaunti ya Busia, anasema tafadhali muulize mheshimiwa, je, mambo gani wameweka ili kuhakikisha kwamba factories, nisome kwa Kiingereza, that factories don't and brokers don't steal from farmers, especially at the weighing point. Tuanze na swali lake la kwanza, mikakati ambayo umeweka kuhakikisha kwamba vile viwanda na vile mabroka, wacha nitumie hilo neno, hawatatizi wakulima, manake tatizo hili la mabroka limekuwepo kwa sana. Unamkinga vipi mkulima kutokana na mabroka?
Mabroka wako wengi na wanatafuta jinsi ya kuishi kupitia kwa mkulima, na tumesema hivi, hii sheria inakuambia kwamba wewe mkulima ujiandikishe na factory. Katika catchment area yako utachagua factory moja ambayo mimi nitaitwa, tuseme mimi napeleka miwa yangu Mumias, nitaandika miwa yangu napeleka Mumias. Lakini hiyo imaanishi umekuwa zoned kwenda Mumias. Hapana. Umepewa uhuru, kama Mumias haipeani kitu bei mzuri, kama Mumias haifanyi hailipi vizuri, unaweza peleka within the catchment area miwa yako mahali fulani. Kumaanisha kwamba kutakuwa na register itawekwa na Kenya Sugar Board ya wakulima Kenya mzima. Wewe jukumu lako ni kujua kwamba miwa yangu ni ya 9 month na factory ndiye itashughulika ku harvest miwa yako in 9 month. Kwa hivyo jukumu tumeliondoa, hakuna broker katikati. Itakuwa wewe na factory. So tulisha kusaidia ndugu yangu kutoka Busia. Hayo mawazo ni mzuri, mliauliza katika task force na tukaweza kuyaweka na tumeweka katika sheria.
Hapo kwa kumlinda mkulima anasema kuna hapo kwa mabroka, na pia anasema kulinda kutokana na pia kampuni. Manake tumeshuhudia kuna baadhi ya kampuni ambazo zinaweka several bags of sugar in the weighing scale. Wanachukua magunia kadhaa wanaweka kwenye weighing scale ili kupunguza weight ya sukari ambayo inabebwa na tractor. Kwa hivyo kuna kumkinga kutokana na huyu broker na pia kampuni yenyewe ama kiwanda.
Leo mimi ndio nimesikia hiyo, lakini tuseme hiyo sasa inaingia kwa sheria ya weights and measures. Kwa sababu wakati unapo interfere na weighing scale, hiyo ni sasa mambo ya Ministry of Trade ambayo inashughulika na Weights and Measures Act ambayo inashtaki factory kwamba it's a criminal act to do ile kitu ambayo anasema. Kwa hivyo tuseme kwamba huyo ndugu yetu, iwapo tunaweza jua ni factory gani, hiyo hata tungoji sugar bill, hiyo sheria iko tayari tuko nayo. Hiyo ni criminal, na akipatikana huyo mtu kama ameweka magunia kwa weighing scale, hiyo ni kushtakiwa. Ndio. Na
tukielekea tukutamatisha, pia kuna mwingine anauliza, je, mkulima atajua vipi uzito haswa wa sukari ama wa miwa, manake wakati inapimwa yule mkulima hayupo kwenye kampuni?
Kwa hivi sasa ama kulingana na sheria mpya, kulingana na vile ilivyo saa hii, ni kweli hawezi ukajua miwa inakwenda inapimwa kwa weighing hapo, weighing bridge, kisha unaondoka utaletewa slip kwamba miwa yako ilitoa tani fulani, inakupatia gross weight ya this much, alafu inakupa net weight ya hii. Ni kweli hiyo measurement inasumbua, lakini kulingana na hii sheria yetu mpya inasisitiza mambo ya sucrose content. Inasisitiza kwamba hiyo mambo ya kupima miwa haitupatii matunda yetu. Sisi tupime ile sukari ambayo tumebeba. Na mara mingi watafiti wamesema 40% accuracy inapatikana kwa sukari, sio kwa miwa. Kwa sababu miwa unapopima, kama kuna jua, tani iko chini. Kama iko mvua, tani iko juu. Kumaanisha kwamba wewe mwenye umepeleka miwa yako kwa factory wakati ya jua utaenda hasara. Lakini wakati unatoa juice, whether kuna jua, kuna baridi, juice ni ile, kumaanisha kwamba utapata haki yako. Kwa hivyo mimi niseme tuangalie ile iliyoko katika sheria mpya kwamba tutaenda kulingana na sucrose content, bali sio kupima kulingana na weight.
Kuna swala ambalo mnaangazia labda kuhusu value addition, mkulima elewe, kando tu na kulima ile miwa kupeleka katika kiwanda.
Ndipo sasa nilikuzia mwanzo nikisema kwamba value addition, hakuna value addition kwa mkulima direct, lakini kutakuwa na ile kulipwa zaidi by product. Hautakuwa naangalia tu kwamba wewe umeleta miwa yako. Mimi nikileta miwa kwa factory, ndio wewe ulizalisha sukari, ukazalisha ethanol, ukazalisha moto, ukapeleka bagasse, ukapeleka molasses. Hii yote tajiri mwenye factory ndiye anakula peke yake. Sasa tumesema hata pia sisi tunataka kukula na yeye. Mkulima pia akule na tajiri mwenye factory. Kwa hivyo yote tutakuwa tunaijumlisha, tunasema pia tupatie bonus yetu. Ndio.
Tukitamatisha, mara si moja tumeona kesi nyingi za mambo ya sukari kotini. Sijui kama umependezwa na vile shughuli nzima ya kesi za sukari zimekuwa zikiangaziwa, ama pia uko na wito labda kwa idara ya mahakama kuhusiana na masuala haya?
Singependa kuzungumzia mambo ya mahakama haswa kwa sababu ya sheria ya prejudice, lakini mimi niseme nashukuru kwa wale ambao wamekwenda mahakamani, haswa wakati rais alipopropose watu wa sukari tupate ile hela clean up ya balance sheet yenye tulikuwa tusaidiwa na serikali na 119 billion. Sheria mingi, wale ambao walikuwa mpeleka cases mingi kotini walikimbia na wakazitoa. Mimi nikasema na mahakama ikakubaliana wakatoa. Kwa hivyo mimi nashukuru. Kwa sasa sitaki kusema beyond that, lakini niseme tu wakulima na matajiri wenye factory tusikimbilie sana kotini. Ndiposa kwa hii sheria tuko na tribunal ambayo chairman wake atakuwa appointed na rais, na atakuwa mtu ambaye ako right kuwa judge wa high court. Na katika sheria ya sukari tumeweka hiyo tribunal so that tusikimbilie mahakamani kupeleka kule mahela kulipa mawakili wamesoma. Ndio sisemi mmesoma vibaya, lakini mnastahili kulipwa, mmesoma. Lakini baada ya kupeleka hela hiyo kule, waende katika tribunal, kama kuna shida wasaidiwe hapo, na tribunal iko katika sheria hiyo.
Asante. Muda wangu umeisha, sekunde 30 tukiangalia kamera hii. Zungumza na wakulima wa miwa kuhusiana sasa kama kuna matumaini baada ya sheria hii mpya.
Mimi nasema kwamba kwanza ni washukuru wakulima wa miwa, baba zetu, mama zetu, kwamba nafasi hii tarehe 1 Novemba 2024 ni mwaka mpya, na sheria ambayo tumepitisha kwenye bunge ilitoka kwenu na tumeiweka sasa ni sheria. Maisha ya miwa hayatakuwa sawa tena, hayatakuwa vile yalikuwa, yatazidi kuwa sawa, mzuri na mzuri zaidi. Tuendelee na tulime miwa. Shukran.
Asante. Shukran sana mheshimiwa kwa hilo. Umemaliza kama mchungaji, wewe anatuambia your life will never be the same again. Mtazamaji na msikilizaji, asante sana kwa kuweza kutenga muda. Huyu amekuwa mheshimiwa Emmanuel Wangwe ambaye ni mbunge wa Navaholo, ambaye pia ndiye alikuwa mfadhili wa sheria ya sukari wa mwaka 2022 ambayo sasa ilikuwa mswada ambayo sasa ni sheria baada ya rais kuweka sahihi mosi Novemba, na pia alikuwa ndiye mwenyekiti wa mediation committee kuhakikisha kwamba sheria hii inaweza kumfikia rais na ikaweza kupitishwa. Asante sana pia kwa kuweza kutegea. Asante bwana Onditi, producer wangu Dennis Chisaka, na asante sana wapiga picha wangu na waelekezi wangu Ben Kamuti na wote ambao wameshirikisha shughuli hii na vile vile wapiga picha. Asante. Mimi naitwa Dora Manya na tupatane tena, lakini kwa sasa na kurejesha upande wa pili wa studio zote mbili.
Nini?
Kwani nini? Kama wewe hujui nini mimi nitajuaje? Ni wewe umekuja nacho, niambie ni kitu gani?
Nini?
Nikipoteza chochote chumbani mwangu, nisiulize wale ambao naishi na wao.
Oh, kati ya wale unaishi nao, uko na siri ndio wa kwanza. Hivyo viatu na nguo tunavaa na wewe.
Sikiza nikupe ushauri mdogo. Baada ya kuvuta bangi, hakikisha umekunywa maziwa. Sawa?
Fala, we are tired of this one major problems after another. If you don't have solution, don't raise problems, okay?
Solution to what, Warrior? What are the solution without a problem?
I don't know. What are they?
No problem, of course.
Come in. He has just said that he comes from Nairobi, Kenya. And then how is he a Jamaican again?
Okay, maybe he's an Jamaican who is visiting Kenya.
Bila kuambia leo tunaenda kutengeneza pesa
na tugawane hiyo pesa pia. Juu unakuaga na tabia ya kunitoka pesa kila wakati wewe.
Lasta. Uchaijua hizi haso zetu zinakuaga na expenses.
Are you now saying that we are girls? Including you?
Of course, girl power all the way. Omera, opportunity comes one Nyathiwa. Aito Villas Atito will be running for MCA of Sawati 1.
I never heard the music so sweet. I repeat.
Wagwan, me brethren, big things are going. Remember, each and every Monday we have to shell down the place with nothing but the best of smooth way the vibes in your favorite station. You know these things, man.
Alafu kila Tuesday, kata simu tupo side giving you Kenyan music from the 254.
And of course, you can